All right, good evening, everyone. We are on RPG Limit Break. It is time for the Duckling Derby Boot Camp. That's right. We are trying to teach all the new players, anybody that's just joined the Final Fantasy Randomizer community, how to play the game. So that is what we're doing here. I am Gregory Puff. I'm going to be actually doing the run. So this is all you're going to probably hear from me at this point. So I'm going to take it over to Jet 2980 and Dead Pulse. They're going to tell you all about what we're doing here tonight.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Gregory. We're looking forward to Gregory, our resident Duckling Dawn, going to be showing us how it goes as we basically walk through what we hope will be some players' very first Final Fantasy Randomizer seed. For those of you who know a little bit more, we're hoping to be able to put out a few tips and tricks, but we're really going to avoid going into like more middle to advanced strategies on this particular one. Now, before we get started, I want to give a quick overview of the Duckling program and what you're going to be looking at for the next 8 weeks and then the following 4. So we are going to have 8 weeks of the boot camp, and each week will consist of a couple key events. So every week is going to start off with this Duckling kind of boot camp reveal, where we're going to be going through the flags and running a sample seed. After that, Tuesday morning, you're going to be getting the Duckling Weekly dropping on the Final Fantasy Randomizer Discord, where you're going to be able to try out those flags. Now, we highly suggest that you play the same flags but a different seed before you do the Duckling Weekly, just to get your just to get familiar with it a little bit. But the flags as well as the exact seed will be dropping on Tuesday. Alongside that, we also are starting a brand new thing for this Duck program, where we're going to give a couple sample parties that some of the members of the Duck Derby team have thought up of, so that way you can kind of figure out, maybe get some ideas for what type of party you want to run. So that's going to be Monday. Tuesday, Duckling Weekly drops with some recommended parties. Thursday, extra credit, going to be run by Dark Moon EX and a guest runner for every week, runners that you'll be seeing in the spring tournament. And that's going to be some more advanced and twists on the normal flag set for the week, working with the same themes, but kind of taken up a level with some more complexity. And then the Async Weekly is going to change over to a seed of that flag set on Thursday as well. So lots of great stuff, and that's going to be every week for 8 weeks during the boot camp, what we're doing the training part. Starting week 9 will be week 1 of the Duckling Derby. You're going to be able to sign up for that on probably around week 5, which is our competition available for all the new players out there, as well as some people who took part in the last one, depending on their placement in spring tournament and things, and also their own graduation criteria. So we're hoping that everyone's going to take part of that, but that's just going to be 4 weeks of races with Mario Kart style scoring most likely, and yeah, so that's kind of what's going on for the next 12 weeks here. With that, I want to introduce my very esteemed co-coms, Dead Pulse. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, hi, Jan. I'm doing great. I'm super excited for this. We have 8 weeks of boot camp and then 4 weeks of competition. I couldn't be more thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so Dead Pulse, of course, to toot his horn a little bit, was the winner of our last Duck Derby, and not only that, he then went on to win another tournament and is now in the round of 32. So Dead Pulse is here for not only to give out some sweet wisdom, but also to kind of show that, turns out the Duck program works pretty well. We see lots of members of your Duck class, as well as mine, kind of doing well in the spring tournament here, eh?
Oh yeah, I love seeing all the people that I, quote unquote, grew up with just trouncing over everyone in the spring tournament. It gives me some pride, as well as it should give everyone here some pride as well for training them so well.
Yeah, I think the Duck program is one of the best parts of the community. So, without further ado, that was a long intro, and I hope the information was helpful for you guys. We're going to get right into the flag overview. So what we're going to be doing here is taking a look at this very intimidating site. This is what it's going to look like when you click the Duckling Weekly seed on tomorrow, and we're just going to go through a couple of the critical flags that we turned on for week 1 of the boot camp. For people who are a little bit more familiar, this is going to be a fairly straightforward, simple flag set, but we still want to make sure we take the time to go through, what a couple of the different flags mean, a couple of the key ones that you should be looking out for. So thank you, Dark Moon, for restreaming and managing the flag. So when you start up, you're going to be presented with a screen like what was at the very top there. If we could scroll back up, Dark Moon. Yeah, so you're going to be presented with something that looks like this. Now, this is a great screen if you do not know what flags you're running, but when you know what flags you're running, you don't have to touch anything here. But in the future, you can use this to try spring tournament flags, you can use it to try a couple of the presets, and if you're a brand new player, prior to the bootcamp, you could try the beginner. So, but let's move on to shops. I guess a couple other pieces of terminology here just before we get started. On the left, you will need to get a ROM, a legally obtained ROM. We cannot supply that to you, so you're going to have to find that yourself. You need the US version, though, not the Japanese, like for other ones. So that's what you're going to upload there. Remember, ROM, we highly suggest checking. Don't change anything else, though. The seed represents the specific randomization for the current moment, and then the flags represent what you see on the right. So it's just a hash string of all the stuff that you're going to see on the right in the future. So, going to need to upload a ROM, click Remember ROM, don't click anything else, and then you're going to click Generate ROM once you're done. Okay? If you are more adventurous than I am, I'm the most boring Final Fantasy Randomizer player ever. You can check off some fun % flags if we keep scrolling down. And then I really do want to highlight two critical flags that Darkmoon, good man Darkmoon over here, has checked off, which is the disable damage tile flicker and disable spell damage flicker. Now these are, the reason I'm highlighting these is for the Duck Derby, if you are on Restream, we're going to require that these are on, and that is to help out with anyone who has trouble with flashing lights on the Restream. We want to make sure everyone can watch our streams, so I suggest just practicing with it on all the time so you don't rely on it as a visual cue. And then once you do that, save your preferences and you're good to go. If you want steak, if you want wings, if you want, fun enemy names, anything else, go ahead. But those two I really do want to highlight and suggest everyone turns them on now. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Dead Pulse?
No, I think you covered it, with the exception of, I love on this site that there are question marks next to each flag. If you don't know what something means, you can click on it and it will tell you what it means. And if you still can't, if it's still not clear, you can always go to the Discord and New Player Pond and ask your question there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a channel specifically for that. Hashtag New Player Duck Pond. The water's warm. Come join us. Sweet. So let's move over to the right. And Darkmoon, can you go?
Just as a quick point, there's also the resources section on the website that provides additional tutorials for players new and old that you can use as well for reference.
Yeah. Do you mind just going back to the one with the multiple choice on the left, just because I think that's how most people are going to be navigating rather than the
sure, no problem.
Scroll away. Yeah.
I will say I use that resources tab at least once a week.
Oh yeah, I use it all the time. If they're not bookmarked, I use the resource tab, and I have a lot of things bookmarked. So, on the left, as we said, presets, you're not going to be touching anything here. So let's move straight into shops. Now, the most important flag on here, which is basically always going to be checked, though, is magic levels underneath spells. So Dead Pulse, do you want to tell us what magic levels means?
Oh, sure. So normally in the game, you're going to have your specific level 1 through 8 magic, and in the vanilla game, you'll get, at level 1, you'll get lit and fire and things like that. But with this flag checked, it actually randomizes all of that, not the permissions. So it's possible that you could get nuke or ice 3 or fire 2 at level 1 or level 5, whatever. So it really gives you more options for your magic in the early game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you'll notice here, too, that you can see actually, I don't know if that screenshot has it, but the mages will put up their hands if they can learn something. So we'll touch on that later, but that is going to be something that's going to be very, very, very helpful for new runners, and we'll talk about that once we get into the seed. Now, the other check mark here, now, we're not going to go over all the flags. We're going to go over most of the ones that are checked, but if the screen does not look like this, read the question mark. But moving over to shops. So shops, pretty straightforward. It's just going to shuffle all of the weapons and armor and heal pots. And so basically the weapon shop, the armor shop, and the item shop are all going to be shuffled within themselves. So weapons to weapons, armor to armor, items to items. And the prices will also be modified based off the scale down below. But basically this just means, Canaria can have gold bracelets, and chain armor might be in Gaia, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, let's move on from there, though.
The reason why the hands aren't up on the screenshot, by the way, is because that's part of the shop info flag, and it may not always be on for every person.
Yeah. Actually, there is one more flag that we should touch on in here. Do you want to take on just tents? I mean, I guess
Oh, just tents. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. So normally you don't start with anything except 400 gold in your pocket. But for this flag set, you're going to start with 10 tents in your inventory. So you don't have to worry about getting early gold for save items. You will always have that available. And that's going to be a recurring theme, maybe, in a couple of these future weeks.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you just start off with a good note here. So that's it for shops. Magic levels, shuffled magic, shops, shuffled armor, weapons, and items, and then just tents. So really do remember you have tents, because that can help for like saving outside of Canaria or Toph, for example. Okay, our Dark Moon is highlighting RNG. This just means that if you are a vanilla game speedrunner, the RNG table is all shuffled, so you can't just memorize encounter table stuff. But we won't touch on encounter table stuff too much in this particular broadcast. On to enemies. Okay, so enemies is where we really do start to get some more spicy business. The first one I want to highlight, Shuffle Surprise bonus. Nothing really too special here except for, things that surprise you commonly in vanilla. Not necessarily going to be the case here. Things that you surprise regular in vanilla, not necessarily going to be the case here. And not much else to touch on there. But do you want to talk about scripts, skills and spells, and status attacks? As those are some pretty major changes.
Oh, I believe in you, Jet.
Okay. So, shuffle scripts means that the enemy scripts are going to be, not first off, all the spells, all the skills in the game are going to be shuffled around, and then they're going to be put onto scripts. And then those scripts are going to be assigned to random enemies. So, Agama's, for example, the Agama script usually has heat on it. Well, now the Agama script instead might start with Bane, and then that Agama script might be assigned to imps. So then we get imps with Bane. But basically what this means is skills and spells will be on random enemies, and you have to be careful with that. Now, keep in mind that this does not mean that each pack will have different ones. All imps will be on the same script. All Gurams will be on the same script. So you can learn about it throughout the seed, but you don't know which ones have it going in. Moving on to shuffled skills and spells. That is the thing I was just talking about. Those two combined are actually what I was kind of referring to. Finally, moving on to shuffled status attacks. That just means that Death Touch, no longer on sorcerers. You might have to deal with Poison Touch on, red dragons and other things like that. We do not have randomized status attacks on, though, which means you will not see things that you've been seeing in the spring tournament, like Mute Touch or other things. Anything I missed?
No, I think that covered it pretty well.
Cool. So shuffled trap tiles, the last one on here. I guess I should also quickly mention that Shuffle Scripts changes the percentages for people to cast spells and skills, and that's all part of that as well, but that's not as relevant for strategically playing around things except for later bosses. But that does mean that some enemies will be more likely to cast spells, and some will be more likely to cast skills, and some will be more likely to punch. Yeah, so moving into shuffle trap tiles. So this means that the eye tile, I like that the GIF is of sandworms and eyes, if only. But sandworms, eyes, they're no longer going to be in their vanilla locations. So eyes, not necessarily going to be in Ice Cave. Agama is not necessarily going to be in Volcano, but with very rare exceptions, you are going to find eyes and Agamas on some of the spike tiles in the game. And spike tiles are essentially tiles which have a forced encounter, and it's going to be an encounter, the same encounter every single time. Sometimes you might get one, sometimes you might get two of the enemy or things like that, but it's going to be the same enemy every single time. And this can really be a valuable way to start a grind. It also can be a very valuable way to die in the middle of a dungeon when you hit metal slimes on the wizard tile in Marsh. Not that would ever happen. So yeah, so that's what shuffle tiles are. We not have B-sides, so the 3-eye grind is a lie in this, but that's it. I'm gonna get some water, Dead Pulse.
Sure, the last thing on this tab to look at is on the formations up top. All formations are going to be runnable. So this means, and normally in the vanilla game, you'll have those formations that you cannot run from. It does not count for boss encounters; those are still going to be unrunnable. But otherwise, you're pretty free and clear on everything. It makes the game a little bit safer, and it makes it so that if you have to, go through a trap tile and it's destroying you because they rolled, Bane and Thunder and Nuke and all of this stuff. But it's guarding an incentive item that you still have the ability to run away if you cannot kill it. The last thing to kind of talk about is the interaction between the enemy shuffle scripts and spells and the trap tiles. So when we talk about the eye and the Aghanim, the eye was a very, very vicious creature in vanilla, but it didn't hit very hard. So if it doesn't roll a script, or even if it does roll a script and it rolls something like, oh, I'm going to cast Dark on you or something like that, it's a very rich EXP monster with a lot less risk than it used to be. So this is why when we say, oh, we look for an eye tile, that's exactly it. The most bang for your buck.
Yeah, the rule of thumb, the heuristic to memorize here is if it's scary in vanilla, it's probably an EXP pinata. Or if it's scary because of skills and spells in vanilla, it's probably an EXP pinata in the randomizer. But sometimes things that were not scary now become very, very scary. You want imps with nuke? This is how you get imps with nuke. Moving on to the next time. Yeah, thanks for bringing up the all unrunnable. That is not going to be something that's on every single time. So we want to make sure that you're paying attention to that in particular.
Yeah, that's a huge surprise when you someone says, "Oh, run this," and you are used to running like an all runnable, and the first encounter is nuke imps that you can't run from. Like, wait a minute.
Cool. You want to take the treasures tab?
Sure. Okay, so we have randomized treasures with the little check mark on the treasures. That's going to, you guessed it, take all of the treasures that are in the game and just mix them up, so anything can be anywhere. We have earlier Ruby that is also checked off, and that just kind of puts the Ruby. Or how would you describe it, Chad?
It makes it more likely that the Ruby will need to actually be turned in rather than you get the floater first. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Ruby is before the floater, but it does make it more likely to be. It makes it basically be placed earlier, so it's more likely that it actually will be required.
Yeah, it doesn't stack the deck, but it changes the odds a bit.
Doesn't it give it the same placement it has for like the ship in the canal, which says that it has to be within like the Circle C placement? I think that's what that does.
Okay, I don't want to get quoted on that, but for the sakes of this, logically earlier, generally speaking, Saracen in chat saying the same thing. So yeah, we're just gonna go with that and say it's more likely that you're gonna get the Ruby and actually need to turn it in rather than just like getting the floater in Sky.
The other thing to note is that you have fetch quest rewards. Normally, if you don't have this checked, it's going to be all vanilla. So if you get the crown and turn into Astos, he's going to give you the crystal. Matoya's going to give you the herb, etc. This randomizes it. So if you turn in the crown, Astos probably not going to give you the crystal. Could give you really anything. On the right-hand side, we have the freebies. These are all of the key items that you get for, you guessed it, freebie. I don't need no king to build me a bridge.
Absolutely. So yeah, the free bridge does make it so going to provoke it early is what you're going to be doing in a lot of the cases. But we do not have a free ship here, notably, which is fairly common. Moving on. Okay, this is the big tab that we're going to spend just a touch of time on. So incentives is a major theme for this week, and you're going to see some spicy business right off the bat for those of you who are familiar with previous randomizer like boot camp seeds. We've actually started right off the bat with some random chest location, kind of taking off the spring tournament. We're going to get to that in a second, but I did just want to say that is quite different. So for people who are used to having like, you know, no loose or 2 loose or something like that as the first seed, that is not the case here. Yes, see, Alvis knows what's going on. Crap, I have to learn Volcano tonight. That is exactly the reason we're doing it. But we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so first off, we're not going to talk about loose, we're not going to talk about no loose or anything like that today. What we're going to say is there's the same amount of items as locations, which means that every single one of these incentive locations will have one of those incentive items, and every single one of those incentive items is going to be in one of these incentive locations. Okay? Starting with the easy ones. Main NPCs and fetch quest NPCs are locations, and if you highlight them, it's going to tell you what those main NPCs and fetch quest NPCs are. But essentially, I'm just going to pull it up on my screen. King, Sarah, Vicky, Canoe Sage, Sarda, Caravan and Waterfall Cave Robot. I especially want to highlight those last two, as those are classic duck traps. Caravan Merchant, which is the shop item, is an incentive location, so please, 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 please check your item shops until you find it. The other one, big one here, is the Waterfall Cave Robot is a main NPC. Waterfall is not an incentive location, and that's why you don't see it under locations. Lots of people think of Waterfall as a location, but it's actually a main NPC. Moving on to fetch quest NPCs, this one doesn't really have any surprises. It is just Astos, Matoya, Elf Prince, the Dwarves, the Lefanish, and the Fairy. And of course, a few of those are going to require the floater. So I'm not going to spend too much time. We're going to highlight it kind of as we go. And if you use the map tracker, it will have it all on the map about where those various places are, so you can take a look at that. Moving into locations. So the new version of the randomizer has two different things that you need to look at. Is the location incentivized? And then where is it placed in the dungeon? Okay? So we have Ice, Ordeals, Marsh, Volcano, Sea, Sky, and Canaria locked, all incentive locations, but the placement of them is not all the same. So Ice Cave, Vanilla, Ordeals, Vanilla, Marsh, Vanilla. And if you want to see what exact chests those are, you can pull up the tooltip, which Darkmoon will show us here quickly. And it's on the bottom. And it shows us exactly what chest that is. So it is guaranteed to be in that chest. If you skip all of the other boxes in the dungeon, you will not miss an item that is required to win the game. However, when we get into Volcano and Sky, they are random, and that means it could be in any chest in the Volcano. And it could be in specific chests in Sky, which we'll get to in a second. So Volcano, any chest in Volcano can have the incentive item, not just the Red Dragon chest, which is what's pictured in the tooltip. So it could be in the Armory, which is the second floor. It could be on the Agama floor, which is the fifth-ish floor, depending on how you look at it. Or it could be in this exact chest. Now, Sea, it's on the Mermaid side in Vanilla, but Sky, it's behind gating, and this is different than the Spring Tournament. This means it will guaranteed not be in Mirage. It will be in Sky Palace, which means you need the cube to get the incentive item here. So technically you don't need to learn your Mirage routing quite yet, but you do need to learn where all the chests are in Sky Palace. So make sure you do that. Canaria locked Vanilla. So that's that. Did I miss anything, Dead Pulse?
No, you checked off all the things that I had for you.
Awesome. I did want to also highlight onto the item side of things that these are all fairly standard, the ones that are kind of before the line break. Sometimes Tail's not incentivized, but it almost always is. But if you go down below it, these are the incentive items, and this is where there's going to be the most variance throughout the seed. So Masa and Power Gauntlet, sorry, I should not use the jargon. The Power Gauntlet, which cast Saber, are incentivized, and this is going to give you a very sure endgame weapon and a big part of your melee buff. So you're guaranteed to find the Masa, and it will be the only Masa in one of these incentive locations. So keep that in mind. I want to point out that the Masa, it won't make a jingle when you find it, for example, in the Volcano. So make sure you're paying attention. If you find the Masa or the Power Gauntlet, those will count as the incentive item in these dungeons. Cool. Let us move on, because this is the most complicated tab. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask us, in the duck pond or anything like that. Goal: defeat Chaos. You need to beat the game relatively normally, so nothing special here. Moving on. We need to get 4 orbs, we need the key and the loot. Okay, map. I actually don't want to spend too much time on this. The big things to focus on here, if you're only ever played vanilla, early open progression is on, which is very, very, very standard in the randomizer, but if you take a look, it just opens up a walking path to the dwarves, as well as connects Ice Cave and Volcano to the same river system. So that is a little map change. The other things, all these early items are on. So King does not need you to defeat Garland, Sarda does not need you to defeat the Vampire, Sage does not need you to defeat Lich, and Ordeals, you do not need the Crown. I don't want to spend too much more time on that, because for the randomizer, if you've ever watched it, pretty standard, but those have changed from vanilla. And quickly touching on isolated map edits, the big one here, Castle Ordeals Pillar, you will be randomized. So if you remember the vanilla one, too bad, you're going to have to learn it all over again every single seed. Now, that doesn't mean that the pillars go to random locations. It is set one time, but it's not the same pattern as vanilla. Yeah. that's pretty much it for this flag set. We are 20 minutes into flag exploration, so we will continue on. And I appreciate everyone's patience for hanging out here as we kind of go through this. Once again, this is really designed for people who are pretty new to this, so we want to make sure that this very overwhelming set of flags can be interpreted. So, we saw someone in chat asking about, randomized enemy HP, randomized encounter rate. That is all handled on the scale tag flag. So these are pretty straightforward sliders. They basically do exactly what they say, and the one thing I did want to point out is the number in brackets is the median. I guess it could be also called, I think it's also technically the average, but it's the middle point. So you have to keep in mind that 30 to 270 actually will average or be centered around 90%. There will be an equal number of things above 90% and an equal number of things below 90%. So 270 is not going to be the most common thing.
Yeah, that was something that devs wanted to emphasize the last time we had this discussion on the Discord. The game will go out of its way to make sure that half of the stats go above that number, half of it goes below, but it is specifically 94 is that midpoint. It will aim everything around.
Correct. So prices, 30 to 270, pretty straightforward. This will be spells, armor, weapons, heal pods, like all your items, including the shop incentive item. Enemy stats 60 to 150, and enemy stats is everything. Number of hits, evasion, HP, all of it. And notice we do not have separate HP scaling on, so that is why the HP is included in that. Boss stats, same thing, 60 to 150%. And these bosses include all the bosses, not just the Fiend refights. It's boss, from Garland to Astos to Carry 1 to Kraken 2 to Chaos. And once again, we do not have separate HP scaling on. Evade cap, nothing too special there. If you don't see medium 240, pay attention, but if it's medium 240, all good. EXP and gold boost. 2.5 times plus 250. So the way this works is each level requires 2.5 times less EXP than in vanilla, and you will get a bonus 250 divided by 2.5 EXP per fight, per enemy. So that is why that's what this is saying. Basically, the way you want to actually interpret this, though, is that the multiplier increases how good your EXP is going to be kind of throughout the game, and it affects all enemies equally. The plus affects how good your early game is going to be, more so than the later game enemies, as it's a higher percentage. So higher second number, better for early game. Higher first number, generally going to be better for your late game levels. 2.5 times plus 250 is kind of generous on both fronts. Deadpulse, any thoughts on EXP and gold boost?
Yeah, most of the like the flags in the string tournament, I'm pretty sure are at 2.3 on that. So 2.5 is a little bit higher than that. You'll see some flag sets even to 2.7, 2.9, but this is just an important thing to look at every time that you are doing a flag.
Awesome. So, EXP and gold progressive scaling plus 5% per item. So these are only the items that make jingles. So Masa, Power, Gauntlet do not count, but it does count free items, so like the bridge. Now, 5%, my advice here, it's important, but not the be-all end-all. So don't focus too much on the fact that you get 5%. If you can do it, great, but don't be like, oh, I need to get all my items before I get levels. Early levels worth more than late levels. Moving on to all of our favorite thing to discuss, encounter rates. The encounter rates are set relatively low for this first one, 0.6 and 0.7 of vanilla. So I don't know who's in chat who knows the exact numbers. I want to say it's like 6 encounters.
You want me to go over it?
Sure.
All right, so in the original game, the overworld encounters, you would get 10 encounters per 256 steps, right? So the reason why we pulled that down to 6 is because we want 6 encounters per 256 steps. And the reason why the dungeon encounter is 0.7 is because in the vanilla game, dungeon encounter was different. It was 8 encounters per 256 steps. So you just got to do the math, and basically pulling it down to 0.7 gives you the same encounter rate for overworld and for dungeon. So you're going to have 6 encounters per 256 steps on both the overworld and in dungeons. And that's pretty much it.
And they're going to be located in the same place. That's the other reason this is really, really nice. So,
yep.
Yeah, that's basically it. We're not going to talk too much about encounters, but that's if you hate the vanilla encounter rate, don't worry, it's a lot lower, and it makes a huge difference. Finally, no blurst weapons, no blurst armor. That is next week. So if you want to check out what that means, come back next Monday on RPG Limit Break. Moving on to party. So, there is very, very little to talk about here. You are allowed to run any party you wish. You may only select from unpromoted party members, which is very, very standard. You may select nuns if you want. There is no party draft, there's no tavern recruitment, there's no hireable limit, there's nothing special. Pick your party. You're allowed nuns. Carrying on. Okay, classes. There is no class blurses in week 1 either. This stuff will come later, you're going to be seeing it, but moving on. Ghost Pirate asking, are these going to be the flags for Week of the Derby? No, these are not the Derby flags. The bootcamp flags are different. Conveniences, the best flag, speed hacks, on, identify treasures, on, enable dash, on, change unrunnable one run to wait. So this one is a really nice pick up from the vanilla game. It used to say you could run, but you can't. But now it tells you when you can't run. Now, of course, as Deadpulse mentioned, all unrunnables is on here, so you're never going to see the white one, but it is a really, really nice thing. Enable dash means that you don't need to press anything. You dash by default, but you can still press A or B to stop dashing. What button do you press to stop?
It's the B.
Okay. I do it all the time, clearly. Buy quantity, one of the best improvements to a randomizer. Instead of forcing your brother to buy all your heal pots for you while you go downstairs and get some carrots, instead you can just buy 99 heal pots with the click of the button. So I suggest you play around with this really, really quick in an item shop when you first load up a ROM, but not much else to say there. And the other one I wanted to highlight here, which is actually somewhat new, is Battle Magic Menu Wraparound. So you can press up to go to level 8 magic, which is very, very good. So just keep that in mind as a little speed up trick. So for those of you who, buy fast at level 7 or something, pressing up is way faster than pressing down. So keep that in mind, and that's a trick that maybe some more experienced ducks can pick up from this. Do you want to cover the advanced flags, Deadpulse?
So we have NPC guillotine. This is important because any NPC that's not important, and by that I mean it doesn't have more than one script or give you an item, you can kill. This is especially nice for like bats inside of the caves, or someone who just gets in your way, with the exception of Mohawk guy over in Provoca. He is eternal. Auto sort inventory is going to put your heal potions in your first slot. Immediately to your right, it is going to put the pure potions and then the soft potions, and then it continues on to tents, cabins, houses. This is different from the original game because in the original game, your key items were first, starting with your loot. So this is kind of it makes it a little bit easier to see what you have for healing potions, etc., and apply those. The last one is shop information. If you click over anything in a shop and press select, you'll get a nice little screen at the bottom, and it's going to tell you all about that. If it's a weapon, what the attack power is, or the damage could be, or if it's a spell you don't know, it'll tell you what it does. It's a very nice quality of life. Like, this convenience section it just treats us so much. I don't think I can go back to playing the original game after all of this.
No, thank you, devs. Shop information also makes it so the characters go into victory pose. Did you mention that, Deadpulse?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So the characters go into victory pose when they can learn a spell. It doesn't mean if their promoted version can learn the spell, but it does for the current, and this can be really helpful for trying to learn your red mage magic in particular, especially in the early levels. Okay, we will... Bug fixes, I want to just very, very briefly say we fixed all the basic bugs in the game that kind of fixing it to how it works. The critical one I want to highlight here that's the most relevant for people is that weapon stats are fixed, which means that the crit rate in particular is fixed. So like the cat claw, for example, doesn't have a ton of crit. The Excalibur does not have a ton of crit. The crit is really on the Vorpal, the katana, and then a bunch of the swords have decent crit from that point onwards, but it's not like vanilla where the Excalibur had a billion crit and so did the cat claw. The other big one here is half black belt crit rate is something that you're always going to want to pay attention to because it heavily influences party selections. And here you'll see that half black belt crit rate is not turned on. So that means the black belt is at its vanilla form, which means it is quite powerful, even starting from even the 20s, but once it gets to 32 is a lot more viable than it would be with half black belt crit rate turned on. Anything else you want to highlight here that people should be paying attention to?
Nope, I think we covered it pretty well. I hope that anyone who has never played the randomizer before or has played it just a little bit got a lot of good information out of here in just learning, how to manufacture the flags and how to see what people are doing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so with that in mind, we're going to get into it. So I do want to apologize, or not apologize, but I do want to thank people for hanging around. The flag reviews are going to become much faster after this because what we're going to be doing is just going over the differences from this kind of baseline to the new one, so just highlighting the key differences. But for week one, we want to make sure we really do go through a lot of the key flags. Yeah, so Grigglypuff, let's get this show on the road and start talking about party comp. So no class blurses here, which means our party comps aren't really going to have anything on the, the seed specific that's going to influence it. So what are you thinking?
Chat's been talking about how it's like totally a BB seed. I mean, I kind of would agree in that regard, or the flags are, because of the black belt hit crit, whatever thing I'm trying to say is turned off, so it's going to crit much more. Also, there are no loose items except for the potential full clear of Volcano and the potential full clear of Sky. I'm still going to run a fighter comp just because I want to kind of go over, I think that it's a more standard comp to run. I think that these flags balance a fighter lead and black belt lead pretty well. Mm-hmm. Plus, the potential of maybe the eye is either scary or is in a bad place to grind. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to grind an eye in Sea Shrine.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we're going to be putting up some sample comps that all of the Duck Derby bosses and our vet of the week, Will Bloodborne, Bloodworth recommended. So you're going to be seeing those, and they actually are a mixture of fighter black belt comps and of course the spicy thief comp from Will. So you're going to be seeing all that. But yeah, I think the fighter comp totally reasonable because we have, of course, the incentive Masa makes a huge difference compared to the spring tournament flags, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Knowing you're going to get a Masa, knowing you're going to get a power block, I mean, I think that also helps out. Mm-hmm. The fighter comp and stuff. Kind of, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and you're going to see in our recommendations that the fighter rainbow is our go-to. Our go-to recommendation will always be a fighter rainbow, just for the safety, as well as it just being a very powerful comp, and it's even a good competitive comp in the future because it two-mans better than almost any other comp. Okay.
So real quick, I want to point out something while I'm on the screen here. So you'll see down at the bottom, you can see your seed number there, right? The 8-digit seed that just lets everyone know that you pulled up the right one, right? The right randomized game. And then you'll notice below that all those little characters. That's what everyone calls hash. So if you're ever in a race or in a race room and the seed is rolled and you pull it up on your ROM and somebody goes, let's confirm hash, they're talking about those characters down at the bottom. So the gauntlet, the shirt, the axe, the staff, the armor, the hammer, the staff, and the shirt. It won't be those. Everyone should have that same 8 characters in that same row if you're in a race.
Yeah, and so, Gregory will be posting that in the Duckling Weekly tomorrow, so you can confirm.
Yep. That way, some people may accidentally just... crazy stuff will happen. You just never know. You may accidentally pull up the wrong seed. So it's just good to know to confirm that hash before you move on. There's nothing worse than getting into a race and you're doing good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I pulled up the wrong seed. I'm not even winning this anymore. So...
So Gregory's going to make his party, and then we're going to be going relatively slowly through the first magic shops, first armor shop, first item shop, and then we're going to be going slowly through spells level 2 through 4. But after that, we're going to be going pretty close to full speed while highlighting some specific pieces of magic and things like that. So this will take a little bit longer. This is not Gregley's true form. This is Gregley's true Duckling Dawn form, which is here to help you all learn some Final Fantasy Randomizer.
So I'm just going to go on ahead and get started here right now. Do you have my Darkman? Do you have my timer, or do you have your timer? Is that?
I think it's the layouts. I'll press start when I see
it's
it
on
on
the
the
layout.
stream.
Okay, just when you see me go, just start the thing. So, all right, sounds good. I'm gonna get going, and I'll be about 10 seconds ahead of you guys, and I'll chime in whenever I need to chime in.
Sounds good. Yeah, JLo saying favorite comp Fighter Rainbow. Groggy Dog, who's in the round of 32, loves the Fighter Rainbow, and I would highly recommend it. Like, as I said, I think the Fighter Rainbow, if you keep all 4 characters up, can be a little bit on the slower side, but it's a fantastic comp to go down to 2 or 3 people with. And that is a little bit more of an advanced strat, but I think the Fighter Rainbow absolutely has a place. Ooh. So for magic shops, what we want to do is first we want to see how the Red Mage is changing as Greggly Puff goes between it. So the Red Mage at level 1 can learn slots 1 and 3, and cannot learn slot 4 until it promotes. Over on Black Mages and Red Mages can learn all the magic. Yeah, that's some magic.
Jet, you go ahead and explain black magic. I will explain white magic.
Okay, so there are 3 spells that are probably 3 of the most important spells in the game for the black magic here. So Nuke, the best AoE sweeper in the game. It is non-elemental, nothing resists it. It is what is going to be the bread and butter for the entirety of the seed. Temper buffs another character's attack, going to be super important for the late game fighter. And then Warp has tons of utility. It moves you up 1 floor, so it goes back closer to the overworld from where you were, or back to where you previously were. And it has utility in saving time throughout, as well as in Ice Cave, Ordeals, all the dungeons. So just fantastic black magic. What about that white magic, Dead Pulse?
So before we do that, let's skip to armor, because Gregory is right there. We have chain armor, which is probably one of the more important things that you're going to see in the beginning shop, because your fighters and your red mages can equip it. Other things that you're looking for in the item shop are going to be bracelets, because that's how your mages are going to be getting their armor from, either copper bracelets, silver bracelets, especially gold bracelets. Also keeping an eye out for pro ranks. We'll hit up those later. To white magic quick, Harm 4 was probably the best spell that was on that list. Harm 4 is going to be doing a large amount of damage to undead creatures. So that's something that's very good for the white mage. Probably one of their only sweepers that they can really get, with the exception of Fade. The other spell there was Exfer. That's going to reduce or take away resistances to elements. It's something that you pick up if you have a slot, but unless you're doing instant kill spells on bosses,
So Gregory did quickly go into the weapon shop, but actually with level 1 Nuke, he went there to show that, look, there's all this great stuff. You don't need any of it, because turns out magic is broken. If there's one thing that we can convince you on, it's magic is broken. Don't swing swords when you can just cast Nuke. Now, Canaria will always have Pures and Softs, so that's something that you should always know, but it's not guaranteed to have save items or heals. That's why we give you those guaranteed tents. So you see that heals are here, but no tents or houses or cabins. So that's something to keep in mind. And whenever I'm checking this, I'm looking for 2 things. Does it have heals? Does it have save items? Does it have my shop item? So let's talk... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at this point, when you go in and you have 2 black casters and you have level 1 Nuke, Jat, how does that change your plan or change what you're going to do next?
Well, I think for the purpose of a beginner, like the first seed that you run, it doesn't change too much, except because we have fantastic early magic, I'm going to be able to go straight to Garland and kill it. I'm not going to have to get levels on imps. I'm not going to have to go over to Provoke to check level 2 magic. We're going to do the default play, and the default play is to go kill Garland. Gregory showing us that there's no encounters on all these tiles. So if you need to get a fight early, make sure you're going into the forests here. These are all free, except for one tile down there, but that's not important. But with Nuke, we're going to take the default play, and the default play is go kill Garland and go talk to King and Sarah. What about you, Deadpulse? Anything that brings to mind?
Oh no, that's exactly it. And 99.9% of the scenes that you're going to see, killing Garland is going to be your first task because you get 2 items. And when I say 99.9%, I mean anything you're going to see coming out of the Duckling boot camp.
Yeah.
We won't get into the advanced stuff, but this is your first play.
So it is okay to take some encounters on the way up, but don't take too many because you want to make sure you have at least 1, probably 2 nuke charges for Garland. 1 should take it out like 95% of the time, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So now notice Gregley's not checking any chests in Toph, or the Temple of Fiends. This is a good play here because we don't need to find a loose bridge. We have no loose items. Those chests might contain some money, they might contain some armor, they might contain a sword, but our win condition here is going to be a fighter swinging a massa, getting tempered, fasted, and casting nuke. So we don't really need much from boxes. Some armor would be nice, but worst case scenario, we're just going to buy gold bracelets and pro rings.
Oh, and for all of our trouble of saving Princess Sarah, we get the ship and the herb.
Oh, Deadpulse with the quick tracking. I was just going over there. So ship, herb, ship, very nice, going to kind of unlock the entirety of our inner sea navigation. Now the ship does spawn in different locations. You can check out the hashtag #NewPlayerDuckPond in the Discord to figure out exactly where those are. But for Canaria, it's very simple. It spawns at Canaria. Now this is a play I like by Gregley. This is something I do often, which is after I kill Garland, I'm going to come here and maybe pick up some 10 pures, maybe a soft if it's cheap, and a few heals or a save item if I don't already have some. With tents, no need to buy the save item, but I would suggest picking up at minimum the pures and a soft if you can afford it, because they're not guaranteed to be in other shop items. Now, what's the default second play after Garland?
So the default second play is going to Provoca and liberating the town, as well as picking up your level 2 magics.
Yeah, what happens if we don't get the ship? Can we still do that?
Oh, absolutely. If we have a free bridge or have access to the bridge, we can just walk around kind of there. You'll take a couple more encounters, but it's still going to be worth it.
Yeah, so if you've been watching the spring tournament brackets, we have a free bridge here, so you do not need to go west. You should almost always be going east to Provoca as your second play. So here we go, on to the pirates. Pirates have no HP. If you don't have a sweeper, pirates are still killable, almost always, just with melee, especially if you're wearing chain armor. They have like 9 HP in vanilla or something like that. So even the mages with a dagger are going to be able to help take them down, but nuke. Pulse, what's duck trap number 1? The first thing that you can do wrong.
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I could do wrong.
Okay.
That's not talking to Bicky.
Yes. Bicky does not give you an item when you kill the pirates. You must talk to Bicky. Please talk to Bicky. Bicky has no friends. Bicky really needs to talk to you, and we pick up the
Ruby. You just nuked them all, so he's out of friends. But we picked up Ruby, in our book earlier, Ruby, so that's going to be nice. We still don't have a canal to get out of the inner sea, but having that Ruby gives us, another check once we do.
So always check the item shop here if you haven't already found the shop item. Once again, shop item is on. Don't forget about the shop item. So shop item's on, but we haven't found it yet, so we're going to keep checking item shops until we do. Quick armor check, because we still haven't found gold bracelets. Once again, gold bracelets, pro rings, chain armor. Those are the 3 things you're looking for in the early game. Moving over to magic. Okay, Invis 2 is the most important spell here. It's going to provide evasion for your whole party, which is going to help you in the late game, specifically a late game strategy. Nothing else here too important. Soft, nice utility, but don't worry too much about it. I really want to emphasize again, magic's OP. I saw someone talking about a silver sword in chat earlier, which, sure, silver sword's great, but you know what's better than silver sword? 9 casts of nuke.
Oh, disgusting. So the first thing to look at is fast, and yeah, Gregory Puff should be highlighting that and buying that immediately. So fast is going to double your hit rate, and that's there's math behind it, but essentially that's what it is. How many hits that you do with a weapon, if you have fast on you, it's going to double it. It is a must-have for literally 100% of the sieves that you're going to run.
Yeah. If fast is level 8, you can get away without it, but if you find it anywhere from levels 1 through 6, you really want to prioritize it. Fire 3, also a really great sweeper, especially in the inner seed. Lots of early game enemies are weak to Fire 3. Basically, if it's undead, it's probably weak to Fire 3. If it's made of grass, it's probably weak to Fire 3. But with level 1 nuke, not as important. Now, you also saw there quickly that the Red Mage can learn all level 2 magic in total, so just keep that in mind. The Red Mage, White Magic, and Black Magic. Gamba Magus, exactly. Saying basically the fighter's obsolete for a while because Black, Red Mages are nuking everything. That is 100% the case here. Thumper, another fantastic question is, does fast stack? So the way fast works is it's a scale from 0 to 2. You start at 1. When you cast fast, you go up the scale. And when you get slowed, you go down the scale. So sometimes you actually do need to cast fast multiple times, but it only can go up to a maximum of 2. So for example, if you start at 1, you cast fast, you go up to 2. But then if you get slow 2'd, you go back to 1. And then you can cast fast again to go back up to 2. But it's a scale from 0 to 2. So keep that in mind.
So for new players, this is probably one of the most important steps in the game. This is the first time that you really get decisions because you've killed Garland, you've gotten the 2 items, you've killed Bicky, you've gotten that item, and you have level 1 and 2 magic. Now, level 3 and 4 magic is here at Elfland. If you don't have the gold for it, you will see people going, okay, instead of going here, maybe I go up and check a couple of chests in Matoya or something else just to get a little bit of gold to buy spells here. Now, with Nuke at level 1, we really don't need any other spells for the time being.
Well, Nuke and Warp. So the things that you're looking for if you're going to dive Marsh. Do I have a sweeper, specifically a fire sweeper, or nuke, or fade? And then do I have warp or exit? If the answer to both of those is yes, you need nothing else, go to Marsh. If the answer to that is no, I usually will check level 3, black and white magic. Why level 3 and not level 4? Because I don't have charges for level 4 yet. See, like if you look at this character, we have level 1, level 2, and level 3 magic, but we don't have any level 4, and we're going to need to get a decent number of levels to do that. So in this case, we're just going to save at the end, and we're going to go hoof it over to Marsh. Now, why are we going to Marsh? Well, that's because Marsh is an incentivized location. So we talked about this at the beginning of the broadcast, but that means it's guaranteed to have an item that's either going to be very helpful for us to win, i.e. the Tail, the Power Bonk, Power Gauntlet, or the Moss Immune, or it's going to have an item that we're going to need to win, i.e. everything else. So that is why we're going to Marsh. Now, if we got an... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say an interesting anecdote. One of the first runs that I did with the randomizer, I had my sweeper and warp at the same level, which was 1. And saving those, I used all of them before I got the item and was not able to warp out and died. So when you have Nuke and Warp at this level, you're going to be going down 3 levels. Make sure that you have those warp charges still when you get that item so you can get out quickly.
Yes, Greg Lee showing us his dance moves again, but this is just showing that the tiles at the bottom of rooms in dungeons and before and after doors as well as the door all cannot cause encounters. So Greg Lee could do this forever and we will not get an encounter. This is a little bit, not more advanced, but just if you don't remember this, it's not the end of the world, but it's good to practice your routing for this. Now, why did we not go to the top of Marsh Deadfalls?
Because the vanilla location is where our incentive is going to be in Marsh Cave. And the top is 4 chests, that's nice, but we really don't care about those items at this juncture. All we want to do is get the incentive and get out in a place like this. Marsh Cave is scary. Even though you have level 1 Nuke, you're still level 4, and things can have heat.
Yeah, so heat, not a terrifying spell in general, but right now, heat is scary at level 4, so... Oh boy, they have stun touch too, or was that just a stun spell? Enlightening Fart asking, does it skip the encounter or just not count as a step? It doesn't count as a step. So, Greg Lee, with some adversity already, now, there's a question here of do we continue or not, and I think the answer is absolutely yes, because we have Warp and Nuke. If we did not have Warp and Nuke, I think this is probably a reset.
we only have 2 charges of warp. I would consider just going down to see what the incentive item is.
Ooh, nice pickup there in the link chest. The Thor Hammer is going to cast Lit 2. That actually is really helpful for the odds of us getting through this. Because with the Thor Hammer, the fighter could do something while the Red Mage casts Fire 3, for example.
Yeah, and to use this, if you need a refresher, you go down to the item section. You can use any one of your items that you have. If it has the ability to cast something, it will. So by using the Thor Hammer, it just casts List 2 on everybody.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of everything the randomizer has to offer. Hey, we have Nuke and Warp, but hey, you know what else is happening? Undead packs have nasty business. So Gregory is deciding to open a few boxes here. This is optional, but I think it's a good idea just considering how broke we are. These boxes are mostly on the way. This party can't run. So we can quickly talk about running. Running in vanilla, horribly broke. And we're not even going to talk about it. But in the randomizer, the characters who are best at running are the thieves, followed by the black mages. In the early game, fighters, red mages, black belts, and white mages will all struggle to run. Not 0%, but under 50%. So that's why being able to cast some spells to get out of fights, especially with less characters, is going to be helpful. If you're running some of the other recommended comps, running may be more of an option. But with the fighter rainbow, I suggest killing them before they kill you, and maybe trying to run with half the party. This is the incentive location in Marsh. Ooh, spicy tile. We would love to kill this, but we need to save our warp charges. And we get rewarded with a nice find. Ooh, we got a spicy first-time flag set here, eh?
This is getting real interesting. I just spent the last 5 seconds trying to figure out where the canoe was.
So Gregory has, normally if you had your whole party up here, you would warp right from the box, but Gregory only had 2 warp charges, so he walked out of the 3rd floor and then warped out of the remaining ones. Also, key thing here, Gregory saved before and after finishing the dungeon. Please do this. You don't know what has nuke. You don't want to find out what has nuke after you cleared a dungeon. So.
Yeah. I want to hop in real quick, and I want to explain why I walked out of floor 3 and warped through floors 1 and 2, and it was because of the ghoul and zombie battle. Just because we know how kind of scary that was, and it doesn't appear on that 3rd floor. It only appears on floors 1 and 2, so that's why I walked out of floor 3 first instead of choosing one of the shorter floors to walk out of.
Gregory with the mega vet knowledge. For newer players, the way that you decide which floors to walk out of versus warp out of will be mostly just which floors are shortest, but with that level of encounter table knowledge, you can absolutely make some better plays. But the big thing is, like, especially in like ice, if you have 3 charges of warp, don't warp in the little tiny floor that takes 3 steps, warp on the floors that are hard to walk through.
Another great anecdote. The first time I played this game by myself, way back in the day, didn't realize clinics were a thing.
You played in permadeath mode? Or until you got life?
No, I played in permadeath mode, and usually it just ended with me having one character going, alright, I don't think I can get any farther. Clinics bring people back to life. It is very good. Oh, no, that's what it was. I had a white mage that lived long enough to get life.
Okay, so a couple decent spells there. Quad X is Power Word Death from D&D, so it kills anything that does not resist death and does not have more than 300 HP. Fade is the critical white mage sweeper. It's basically the same as Nuke, but slightly weaker, but it's going to be your go-to sweeper for white magic. Now, you might wonder, should I buy that on the red mage? And the answer is yes, 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 yes. You do have limited spell charges, so having the options on multiple levels, especially with Warp and Nuke sharing a level, is very, very helpful, especially for the early game. So, definitely pick that up on both mages.
Another thing to note, whenever you're looking at, especially level 3 and level 1 white magic, and you're running a fighter. So the fighter can learn when they promote. They can learn slots 1, 3, and 4 in level 1, and they can learn slots 1 and 3 in level 3. Mm-hmm. You will get this. Like, if you don't remember it, that's fine. It takes a little bit, but just remember there are a couple spells they can learn. Fade was in slot 3, which means that a knight can learn it.
Mm-hmm. Now, knights with Fade, very nice, but not absolutely required. The big one for knights is Life and Cure 4, which we have yet to see. So Gregley going to be picking up some tents. He's not going to be doing too much encounter manipulation here, which was why tents can be very helpful, but having tents in general just always good because, as we mentioned before, saving before and after dungeons is important. Level 4 magic, Lock, is fixed. So what Lock does is it decreases Fiend evasion, specifically bosses is where you're going to primarily use it. So if your fighter should be getting 10 hits and is only getting 5, Lock going to be a big deal. White magic, oh boy. Life 2, the best life spell in the game is going to bring people back to life and fully heal them, and that's in slot 3, which the red mage can learn without promoting. So yeah, we have just all the magic except for Cure 4.
Yeah, whoever said at the beginning that we should be taking 4 red mages, you were right.
Yeah. Now notice as Gregley Puff went up and down there that slots 2 and 4 were not red mage learnable, so that's good to know. And also knights are promoted fighters can only learn levels 1 through 3, and not all the slots, as Deadpulse mentioned. So we're going to leave, we're going to walk back in town, we're going to save, and our shopping is mostly done. So Gregley didn't buy Fade on the red mage, but it's not because he doesn't want it, it's because he was trying to save some money. Where are we going next?
Well, the next possible place, so we're still locked into the inner sea. We cannot leave with the ship. So, quick side note, what Gregley is showing is that any time that you enter a river tile, once you have the canoe, or leave a river tile, you do not advance the encounter table the same way that he was doing that in Marsh with the right in front of doors and the bottom of the thing. So this is important to note every time that you're kind of routing. If you can route in as many gap river tiles as you can, you're going to get less encounters.
So where Gregley is going right now is we're going over to Crescent Lake. So there is 2 incentive actually 3. There's 3 incentive locations that we're heading over towards. With the canoe, we unlock access to Crescent Lake, which has the Sage, which is a key NPC. We unlock access to Volcano, and we unlock access to Ice Cave. So those are our 3 options. Now, which of these should we go to first? Well, there's a couple of considerations, but whenever you're comparing incentive locations, you want to consider 2 key things: speed and safety. And in this case, both speed and safety point to Crescent Lake. Crescent Lake, there's no danger other than the river systems, and all of them have the river system as dangerous, as we can see here. But not only that, the incentive item's just waiting for us there, because remember, we have early sages on. So this is a pretty clear Crescent Lake play. Now, after that, Volcano or Ice Cave is actually an interesting discussion, but we'll have to see what we get from the sages first.
And don't forget, once we go in here, we have that delicious warp spell. So once we travel all the way back to talk to the sages, we can warp right out, save a couple of seconds.
Excellent point. A lot of newer players forget that warp can be used in towns as well. So notice he's checking the item shop because we still have not found the shop item. We're checking the armor shop because we haven't found pro rings and gold bracelets, but there's pro rings. So that's a note I wrote down on my notepad every single time: pro rings, gold bracelets, as reminders of where they were. Level 6 magic, nothing we care about. Invis, with some utility. Cure 2 I would almost never buy, but Invis can be very helpful in a pinch if you don't have Ruse or Invis 2. White magic, black magic, there's nothing we could possibly find, but Ice 3, a valuable sweeper, but not something we're ever going to cast at level 6.
So, chat, while Gregley is going to go check out the incentive item, why are pro rings so important to find and equip on your party?
Yeah, that's a great question. So pro rings, not only are they best in slot in terms of absorb, they're also a great way to equip your entire party with death resistance. And there's a number of scary insta-deaths that are death elements. So the pro rings are something that basically every character wants to equip anyways, and it provides that critical resistance. So finding them in shops and getting them for all 4 of your characters is going to be really helpful. So we picked up the tail for the sages. That's going to be helpful. That's going to let us promote, and we're going to want to promote as early as possible once we find the airship. However, that's not progression, so we're heading to a volcano or ice cave. Dead Pulse, where would you go?
Well, we're at a 50-50 here. I have Warp, so I would think about going to Ice Cave first. However, I don't have a lot of gear, and I would like that money to buy those pro rings, so I might think about Volcano.
Yeah. I think with Warp and Ice is vanilla location, I would go to Ice just to get the incentive item out of there as fast as possible rather than like committing to a full clear of Volcano. But I think there's an argument to be made to just going to Volcano, checking the first floor, and then maybe just even piecing it and going over to Ice after. Like, I think there's lots of options here, but Gregory looks like he's decided on the Ice play as well. The critical factor here is having Warp or Exit, specifically Warp, though. If you don't have Warp or Exit, I think this is Volcano basically every single time. Once again, safety and speed. And safety is not only enemies. Enemies are scarier in Ice than they are in Volcano. But it's safety because it's shorter. You don't have to clear as many chests, you don't have to take as many fights, because you can just warp in and out. And then speed side, once again, you either have to potentially full clear Volcano because we don't know what chest the incentive item is in, or we can check exactly one chest in Ice Cave. So because speed and safety both are pointing to Ice Cave, I would go to Ice Cave first.
And honestly, there's a good chance that you're going to need to go to Ice Cave anyways, so it might as well be now when you're in the area, you have Warp. Why not?
Also, I think the spell selection also makes a difference here. We have Fire 3, Nuke. I mean, Nuke is good everywhere, but Fire 3 is especially good in Ice Cave, so gives us some extra casts of spells that aren't using our warp slots.
Those Frost Dragons wish they had pro rings. They'd be resisting that Quad X.
Yeah, and they also have less than 300 HP, which isn't surprising, but still good. Once again, Quad X, anything that does not resist death, things that resist death, undead, they're already dead. You cannot kill them more. And things that have less than 300 HP. Yeah, someone was mentioning earlier that the prices looked a bit low. We purposely set the prices just a little bit low so people could buy their pures and softs and stuff more surely.
I like this, what Greg Lee is doing. So you have Fire 3, and we were talking about this before, specifically in Marsh Cave. But now in Ice Cave, when you see all of these undead creatures and frost creatures, yeah, they don't like Fire 3. So you can save your warp charges and still be able to kill pretty much everything in this instance. So yeah, what we're doing, while we're talking about how warp is so important, you drop down right at that location. Once he hits warp, you're going to come back up in the same location and get that great chest, which is going to be the canal, which is what we were looking for to get out of the inner sea. And then at this point, you can warp right out. So only checking those 3 chests and basically having a really safe time coming in here, because Ice Cave, let's face it, it can murder you if you let it.
Yeah, so in the vanilla game, you cannot have access to warp and exit prior to going to Ice Cave, so you must go through it twice. But in the randomizer, we're in great shape. And it turns out that the canal was in Ice Cave. Now, the floater could still be in Volcano. So, you know, there's that. But will Gregory decide to go to Volcano next? I think it's a reasonable play. We got some levels. We have Nuke, once again, always... Nuke adds a lot to the safety speed conversation here. We have tons of heal pots is the other big thing, so Volcano seems like a reasonable play. Something to note from the spring tournament, Northern Docks is turned off here, which means the floater is always going to be required. Oh boy, who rigged this?
What is a ribbon?
What is a ribbon? Well, the ribbon is the single most important piece of gear you can find in a random chest in this particular flag set. It is the one thing we did not guarantee you get that you basically want for go mode, unless you're running a black belt and get that black belt to at least like 35. There are 3 ribbons in the game, so there's not only one chest that you need to open, but the ribbon provides resistance to all elements. It only has 1 absorb, but resistance to all elements is huge for the Temple of Fiends Revisited fight. Maybe while Gregory Puff is showing us how to clear Volcano, we can quickly talk about start even right now thinking about how we're going to win the game. So Do you want to cover fighter win conditions?
Absolutely. So the first thing you want to look at is the flags. What is incentivized? And in this, we have an incentive mass immune. So if you clear every incentive location, you are guaranteed to get that mass immune. If you get your fighter up to level 24 with a mass immune, you're at 5 hits. If you have a black mage caster with fast, you are going to be at 10 hits. That is pretty much your win condition for this. Having temper is going to make things go faster, but those are the two things I'm looking for. So as soon as I found fast at level 2, oh man, win condition was already set. So yeah, there are a lot of chests in this second level here, and they're a lot guarded by trap tiles as well. So we're just trying to get through these. I mean, when you find giants on a trap tile, we're already level 10 or 11. Gregory's not going to take these. He's not going to waste the magic on these. He wants better encounters or to use it on if he decides to take on carry. And we have the crown jewel of this floor, which is the armory. There are an amalgamation of chests here, and a good possibility that we're going to find the incentive item here.
So I'm just going to quickly link to the... So I'm just going to quickly link to, in chat, the map for the Gurugu volcano that I use, which is on Mike's RPG Center. You can find it in the resources section as well. I believe all the maps are available to be found there, but that's the one that I use, and you're going to need to learn the volcano, what chests to check, where the traps are, all that for this. You're also going to see here, Gregory, that he's taking a very specific path through the volcano, and the reason for that is that these lava tiles do not increase the step table, which means they will not cause encounters. So you actually usually want to take as many lava steps as possible to decrease the number of encounters you get. Now, when you do that, you got to make sure you have heal pots. So always come into heal to volcano with either heal pots or heal 3, or ideally both. But make sure that you are ready for taking the damage, because you are going to take damage even if you don't want to, but we suggest you walk on all the volcano tiles and take advantage of that. You also notice there, Gregory's play to warp out of volcano after the armory is a really good play. You almost always want to do that to make sure that you're saving your levels, your gear, and then there's so few steps in between there, it's just usually faster and safer to do it if you have warp or exit. So a nice play there by Gregory Puff. Also notice the very specific step route he takes here. He's gonna, he took one extra step, but you can actually walk straight up from the doors to skip a step to the left and right of the doors in the volcano. So that's how you can take basically no steps for these various chests. Now, Gregory's not opening all the boxes here. Why is that?
So we pretty much have our win condition already as soon as we do find the but there are still things out there that could make our life easier, and it only takes a second to check some of these chests. They're normally called greed checks, just because they are so close. You can get to them without advancing the encounter table. It only takes a second. And yes, if someone says, "Oh, but people have lost races by a second," we're still looking for like a dragon armor, opal armor. It would still be nice to have like a reasonable weapon on the fighter at this point, or gold bracelets, opal bracelets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't fault him at all for checking those chests. I wouldn't, like he did, I wouldn't go out of my way to check the 5-pack, the mini armory, or whatever the terminology is that's on the Agama floor. But nope, that was perfect. And takes out carry. I mean, that's the benefit of having nuke level 1 and fade level 3. It doesn't matter if you have a weapon. 1 or 2 turns, you can get your first orb.
So yeah, just don't forget in just trying to remember past the cube in Sky and Volcano, you must open the boxes until you find the incentive item, but after that it's optional. And all other dungeons, chests are optional. So just keep that in mind and have that narrative in your head. am I opening boxes because I have to, or am I opening boxes because I want to? And if I am opening boxes because I want to, what am I trying to find? Is it just money? Is it a ribbon? And the answer in this flag set is 95% of the time it's going to be I'm opening chests because they're either very, very free. You have like a 3-step rule, right? Or a 3-second rule, Dead Pulse?
Yep.
Or I need a ribbon, and it's a lot of the time it's going to be I need a ribbon. So why do you do the 3-second rule?
Because I feel that, well, it started with the first group check that I would do is the 4-pack chest in Sky 3. And it takes about 12 seconds to get there, open the 4 chests, and come back. So I decided if I'm going to do that, then 3 seconds per chest is okay with me. It should be always okay with me.
Excellent. Another great heuristic. Okay, so we have cleared the entirety of the Inner Sea. We will be back because we need to do some fetch quest turn-ins later. But for now, all the incentive locations in the Inner Sea are completed, and those were, once again, we killed Garland, we got to King and Sarah, we went over to Pirates, talked to Bicky after killing Pirates, talked to Bicky after killing Pirates. We checked our item shops, there was nothing in the item shops here, and then we did Marsh, and then once we got the canoe, we were able to go over to Crescent Lake, to Ice Cave, and finally to Volcano. So we have basically completed the entirety of this area of the map, and we're ready to leave to, I don't know if it's warmer or colder waters, but we're ready to leave to new waters at the very least.
Absolutely. It's also important. We've done a lot of stuff. We've had a lot of adventure over the last 20 minutes since we've gotten the ruby. So it's important to remember, if you're not having a tracker to help you with this, to realize we still have the TNT to turn in, we still have the ruby to turn in, and we've gotten the tail, we've also gotten the slab.
So this is something that Gregley's showing, which I really like, actually. This is something I point out on the VOD reviews, which is you kind of want to leave the... Oh, bluer waters. We kind of want to leave the Inner Sea with our inventory in kind of a good spot. The reason for this is that without Northern Docks on, we can't really restock that easily outside of the Inner Sea. The reason is because Melman doesn't have an item shop, and like Ordeals, which is another common place to go, doesn't have a town anywhere nearby. So stopping in either Elfland or Canaria to go pick up some heals, cures, tents, houses, softs, gonna be very nice.
I like here, Gregory coming back to pick up Temper. So Temper is one of those spells that we're probably not going to use until, further dungeons, like the last half of the. So if you don't want to spend the money or it's expensive, it's very reasonable to only buy the spells that you need then and route yourself back to pick them up. Now, you just can't forget about it before you head into Temper, but it's an excellent play.
Yeah, and Gregley's deciding that he wants to open a few more optional boxes here. This is just to get some extra safety, not required once again. Oh, also that. I was going to say, is he going down? He opened a few extra, once again, 3-second boxes and then turned in the TNT. So we get the floater. That opens up a lot of options. So whenever you get the floater, which leads to the airship in the Ryukyu Desert, you basically always want to turn it in immediately. There's very, very few places where turning in the floater right away is incorrect. And that, by few, I mean one, and that one is when you're in like the on-rat continent. But outside of that, you basically want to go straight to the floater, turn it in. This is going to open up our decision space massively. Now, what are some key things to keep in the back of your mind, or like what should getting the floater trigger from your memory? Like, what are the first things you should be thinking about with a floater?
The first thing I think about is, have I visited Sarda yet?
Mm-hmm. So Sarda is behind the ruby normally, so we could go walk over, but with the floater, it's going to be faster just to fly. And yes, the first thing you should almost always think about is Sarda. Have I done it yet? If I haven't, it is safe and it is quick. Therefore, we go to Sarda a lot of the time. The other things that come to mind immediately are threefold: promotion, slab and bottle, and shop item. And it looks like Greglipop has decided to prioritize promotion first, which I think is totally reasonable.
Yeah, the reason why I decided to go first is because I knew I needed to turn in the slab. Mm-hmm. So if I'm do Sarda. I'm going to turn in the slab. I want to make sure that if there's anything that's Red Mage promotable or Red Wizard, that I could pick it up at Melman and not have to come back. There's not much left that I do want, but in case like Heal 3 is like that slot 2 in White Magic, I want to be able to make sure I can grab it instead of having to come back for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kind of that like very, very forward thinking. So once again, just to go through the floater checklist: Sarda, promotion, bottle slab, and then shop item. Those are the things that should come to mind immediately. Why? Because they're all safe and they're all quick. After that, we're going to talk about some other options in terms of the remaining incentive items. For example, checking Cardia for some extra money, things like that. But those incentive items, focus on your incentive items and make sure that you're getting your quick, safe ones done soon.
So what you're seeing here is puff checking these chests. There are 3 islands that are going to have free chests in them. So what he's doing is saving outside in the airship so that if he doesn't like what's in the chest, he can reset out. Now, this isn't something that we expect all the new ducks to do. I'm just trying to explain why he's doing this, is to save the spell charges and the extra 5 seconds from walking out.
Yeah, and note, you can pitch a tent in the air. Who would have guessed? So yeah, I saw someone earlier mentioning that they didn't know that they could pitch a tent in rivers. Yeah, you can pitch a tent anywhere. You can do it in the sea, you can do it in the sky, you can do it on the rivers. Nice pickup there. Ice shield. Second best in slot for the knight, so going to be a solid improvement, also providing resistance to ice magic, of course. And then the dragon sword. So my rule of thumb when I have a sweeper with knights is equip swords twice. You equip when you get anything that is even a reasonable mid-game weapon, and then you equip again when you find your Masa, essentially. So that's an acceptable mid-game sword, and then we'll re-equip it when we get the Masa. Lemon asking, what is Duckling Showcase? So the Duckling Showcase is where we're going through a flag set for our new players. It is a self-assigned role where we try and create a warm, welcoming environment for our newest runners to get their feet wet, as they could say, hence Ducklings.
Real quick, I don't actually need to go to the shop. I just want to show that you can pick up those spells there for the night.
Yeah. Actually, that's another good mental trigger. So I'm trying to give as many mental triggers as I can just to try and simplify decision making. So another mental trigger is, remember, floater, early game, Garland, Bicky, floater, promo, Sarda, bottle, slab, shop item. When you promote, buy your spells. As soon as you promote, equip your weapons and armor, and then after you warp and exit out, buy your spells. That's just another good thing to get in the habit of doing, so you don't need to remember it later. Yes, once you're more advanced, you can try and route as efficiently as possible, but the fastest, safest thing to do is just, when you do the thing, have it trigger your kind of next routine. Goat's asking how many times can you bomb out of the derby. Ask Papa. I think the answer is an infinite number, but Papa doesn't actually take part in the duck derby anymore. He just likes his duckling role. In all actuality, I know we have a number of more experienced ducks in chat. It's a self-assigned role. I would greatly prefer, I don't want to see older players come in and, bash all the new players. Take part in the derby, take part in the weeklies, all that stuff. But if you feel like you've, graduated, you know what's going on, give up the duckling role, come and help out those new players. We really do want the duck derby to be for our newer players, people who have started playing in the last 6 months or people who haven't played for a while, to be able to come in and learn with people of similar skill level.
So,
now,
sorry. I was just going to hop in real quick and basically say, now that I have Cure 4 and Brack, I'm pretty much done checking item shops. I mean, you can tell, or magic shops, you can tell right now my white mage can't even learn the Cure 4 or can't even use it. Same with the red mage and Brack and the black mage, just because, I don't have enough levels yet. But once you start getting to high tier things, even Heal 3, as great as it is, I'm not going to need it at level 7 if I'm only going to get 1 or 2 casts of it.
Yeah,
in
so
my opinion.
spells that I want before I stop checking magic shops: Fast, Temper, Nuke, Warp. Life 2, Cure 4, Fade, and Exit. If I have those, you can basically stop checking weapons or magic shops. Okay, so Gregory has accomplished all of those kind of floater checklist items, except for turning in the slab, and I don't know if that's where he's going to go next. Crystal, of course, being a fetch quest that he just picked up, makes logical sense to go to, but are you going to do the slab after the Crystal, Gregory?
More than likely.
Yeah, unless there's...
I might run ordeals first to maybe see if I can find the bottle before I do that, but more than likely that's what's next.
Oh, yeah, add him in first. So whenever you get a fetch with the airship, you can do proximity routing, but generally just keep following your fetches.
One thing to add, when you're picking up, you were talking about the checklist, Jat. This is where checking those shop items are important and remembering. So does anyone remember in chat where pro rings were and how much they cost?
I remember.
Okay, we got some people hanging out in chat here, paying attention. Yeah, so Crescent Lake had our pro rings for around 6.5K. So being able to go back and pick those up is really big. Now, why is that part of your floater checklist, Dead Pulse? I agree 100%, but why?
Well, because at the point where if I'm near there to get those, like if I get the floater before I have to do some of the heavier dungeons, like I'm gonna want to have those pro rings for the Temple of Fiends Revisited. But it's also going to help going through Sea Shrine and Sky Palace, because I don't know what I'm going to encounter. Something could, have Quad X, something could have all of these spells that could just instantly kill me, where a simple stop could have fixed it.
Yeah. Something I would love to just drill into newer players' heads is doing prep leads to less wipes later. Now, you don't want to be over-prepared, and that's a really hard thing to balance up. It's easy for me to say, oh yeah, this is the exact level of prep that I know I need to have based off some combination of gut instinct and experience. But, if you have the money, go buy your pro rings. When you have the money, go buy your gold bracelets. Go buy your life 2 on your knight, if it's available. Go buy your life spells, go buy your things. When it's cheap enough to do, you want to do your prep before you dive the scary dungeons, because yes, it might take 15 or 20 more seconds than the most optimal way possible, but it will save you minutes from a wipe on Sky 3.
That white mage just can't get a break. Dark Moon, goodness. Just a quick note, the T-Rex, if you see that and you have the ability to take it out, it is a monster of experience. Like the highest experience single creature in the game outside of the Womack.
Yeah, T-Rex, very, very, very tasty. But hits hard, has a lot of HP and a high magic resistance. Do not try and insta-death it except for Quad X. And if it's a Quad X-able T-Rex, you're very lucky.
Another thing I want to touch on as we're going through this is, so when you get a ribbon, when you get a pro ring, like it is important to know who to equip that on. So basically what I choose, and then I can ask you, Jack, is that if I have a life caster, that is the first person that gets a ribbon, because if an instant death spell comes out or crack comes out from those hydras and kills everybody, the ribbon wearer is probably going to resist it. If they run, they can res it for 1 up, I'm on my way.
I agree. So priority 1 is life caster. If I have multiple life casters, I pick the one that also has a sweeper, because that way they can also kill the fight to get out to cast life. If I don't have a life caster, I prioritize either the person I need to warp/exit out of dungeons, or I prioritize the person I want to live the most to give you the highest chance to get out of the dungeon, which is my melee. So either my warp exit caster or my melee. It gets a little fuzzier without life, but 90% of the time the right answer is your red mage if you have one. Wait, what? What happened with the sorcerers?
I think they have Blizzard, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they have a pretty low chance to cast it though, because they ambushed me and all 5 of them meleeed first. So
Yeah, so chat coming in with the helpful advice. So when we get to ordeals, we actually have been in ordeals. We haven't even talked too much about warp, but when Gregley takes a pillar and it goes to somewhere that he has been before, what he did is he cast warp to go back to the previous pillar. So that means it's really important to remember what pillars what rooms you've been to and which rooms you haven't. Now, the memory trick I use is I have names for all of the rooms and I repeat them in a sequence as I'm going through it when I'm doing a very, very serious race. So I'll be like, okay, entrance left, top right, all middle done, top left. And I just do that, and then I'll repeat the whole sequence each time, and that's my memory trick, but people can use whatever they want, or you could just have a non-garbage memory, that works too.
Yeah, I named those rooms as well, but they're after pop singers from the 90s.
Seriously?
No, but that would be funny if it was true.
I was gonna say, that actually is a really good memory trick as well. Yeah, okay, yeah. BD saying the same thing.
I actually do the shapes in my head, and I kind of stamp them off in a row as soon as I have done them, and then link them. I don't know, it's weird.
I can't see pictures in my head, so everything needs to be connections, but yeah, that's basically have a trick, make sure you do them all the time, and then you're good to go. So Gregley's opening some extra boxes, but they fall under the 3-second rule. Picks up the best in slot Aegis Shield, which also provides poison resistance, and picks up a chime for the trouble.
So another thing, and this is kind of going back to when you're looking at shop items, so we talked about the pro ring, but another thing when you're running a fighter comp is just keep an eye out for steel armor. So if you can't find anything in a dungeon that you can use for your fighter, that steel armor is still a lot of absorb, and if that's your worst piece of gear, you're still going to be pretty fine going through Topher.
Yeah, absolutely. Fighter armor is in my brain. I know it's not exactly like there's other stuff, but it's basically chain, then iron, then steel, and then magic armor, flame, or ice, and then dragon is the best. It's kind of where you want to go in. And you're basically happy with anything that is steel and above, although I have gone into Topher with iron armor, but at that rate, a lot of the time you're just buying gold bracelets.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Especially with blurses, but that's something that comes later. Okay, so we did ordeals, we got a chime. Now let's start talking about. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say this is a good thing that Gregley's doing. So he's checking for a shop item. There are 3 locations left that the shop item could be. One is here, which is where it was. This is the vanilla location, but it also could be an Onrak or Gaia, and finding that shop item early is generally going to be a nice thing to do. Now, I was just about to talk about endgame. So remember, we said that to win this game, we had to defeat Chaos. What do we need to defeat Chaos? Well, we need the 4 orbs lit, and we need the key and the loot. The reason we need the key and the loot is there's a locked door in Topher, that's why we need the key, and then there's the loot plate, which is why we need the loot. So 4 orbs, key, loot, win condition. Now, things that are required to win. Now, 4 orbs are a little bit more complicated than just 4 orbs, because we need certain items in order to kill the 4 fiends, and specifically we need the 4 items in the bottom right side of the tracker. We need the rod, the oxale, the chime, and the cube. Okay, so Gregley making so I think let's talk about what was on the table here. Gregley had a couple choices. Already has done ordeals, has already found the shop item, so there's only 2 incentive locations.
There's 3.
No, 3. There's only 3 incentive locations left that he could check. He could turn to the slab, which is 1. We could go to Waterfall, or we could go
to the slab already.
Oh.
Yeah, the slab was wrong. We could go to Waterfall, or we could go here.
Yes.
The reason that we go here is because we don't have the Oxyale, so it's pretty much a 50-50 chance that this is going to lead to the exit. It's actually a little bit more because we still don't have the key, but just say 50-50 for now.
Yeah, okay. The point, I got the numbers all wrong, but that was the exact point I was going to make. The reason you don't want to do that yet is you don't want to double dip the on-rec content. Now, Gregley is opening a couple boxes in Mirage. Now, this is fine, but I do want to point out this is not required, and the reason is because Mirage does not have our incentive item. Guaranteed, it will be in Sky. So you can open boxes in Mirage, but you don't have to, as we see here with the greater than less than room skip.
I like the idea because of trying to fish out one more ribbon, like not spending a lot of time doing it. He skipped Mirage 2, but you have a ribbon for your life caster, in this case going to be the Red Mage. You'd love to have one more ribbon because I don't think we've seen Wall yet. So if we could put that on the fighter, I would feel comfortable with this gear once we get the Mass Immune going through Dover.
So welcome to Sky, many people's favorite dungeon. Home of a lot of EXP, a lot of relatively close chests. Sky is very much where you want to plan to get levels 18 through 24. Not all of them, but that is, you want to be going in around 16 to 18, and then you can often get 3, 4, 5 levels from Sky depending on encounter rate and how many fights you're taking and how many chests you're opening. So yeah, so that's what Sky now. Go ahead.
One thing we saw in that chest was the Zeus gauntlets. That is an item just like the Thor hammer that casts lightning tube when you use it in battle.
So nice little use of the warp trick again here. This is the veteran routing for the floating castle. Make sure you warp from right and left side of Sky 1 and also warp on Sky 3. And we found the item, the bottle. Gregley, are we going to be opening more boxes in Sky?
Potentially, if I can get out of this next battle.
So once again, we do not need to open more boxes. Let's go back to the win condition discussion. It's Masa on the fighter. The Masa is incentivized, so we can find that for sure. It might just be the bottle, it might be in Waterfall. We do not need to open more boxes, but there's the 3-second rule as well, so maybe we open a few greed boxes. Sky is a great place to do that, and not only that, I think we need to keep in mind here that Sky is a great place to get levels as well. So
yeah, absolutely. We're about 4 levels away from the best breakpoint that we could hope for on that fighter. I would love to have those levels before we leave.
Yes, so taking extra chests... Oh, go ahead, Gregley.
I was just going to say, I'm probably going to... I'm clearing this floor for the exact reason you guys are talking about. I'm not clearing the floor, but I'm checking one side of this floor because I would like to get an encounter on this floor because this is one of the best floors in the game for encounters that you can take down pretty easily. And of course, I found a break in the encounter table, so I probably won't see anything on this floor, but whatever.
Yeah, so sometimes you open boxes not just for the boxes, but also just because you want something to do while you try and get a few levels. Yeah, so people are saying in ribbons too. Yeah, the other reason you'd be opening boxes in this flag set in particular is for ribbons. If you don't have a ribbon yet, Sky's a great place to get some levels and also potentially find a ribbon.
But this is also part of the trap, because when we had no ribbons, we were like, oh, if we could only find a ribbon. Once we had one ribbon, we're like, oh, if only we could find one more ribbon. That's where the greed kind of comes in. Now, I can definitely see, like, if I had 2 ribbons, I would feel great going into Topher. With 1 ribbon, I still feel okay, but...
With 1 ribbon, if you have life on your knight, you should feel extremely safe. Without life, I would still feel fairly safe, but not quite so much. The thing is, the boss scaling here, Deadfalls, is... I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying it like and conversationally, but like the boss scaling is low enough that actually, even if your Red Mage is the only thing that survives, Nuke and Fade is often going to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so some other nice gear for our treble. The gold bracelet, going to be 2nd best in slot armor. Well, technically 3rd best in slot, but basically one of the best armor that you can get for the mages. Doesn't provide any resistances, but does just provide a bunch of absorb, which is very, very helpful. Sky Maze, you can go whatever directions you want, but you need to go 2 to the right and 2 to... How do I describe this without giving an order? You need to go diagonal 2. Doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah, it's a 4x4 grid. You need to be You need to be 2
By 3.
away. I'm sorry?
3x3. 3x3 grid.
Yeah.
Not 4x4.
It depends if you're looking at the negative space or not.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true, you're right, sorry.
You need to go
We could
diagonal.
both be right, but Gregory is more right.
Go up twice, and then right twice, or down twice and right twice, or whatever you want to do.
Come on.
Now,
We should just say x-axis and y-axis.
okay, Bridge of Destiny. Couple notes. One, always heal before you go onto the Bridge of Destiny. Why? Because you can get War Mech on the Bridge of Destiny, and War Mech has the Fiend 2 spells, which means it can have nuclear, and you don't want to die because you didn't heal. Number 2, lots of encounters. It has the highest encounter rate in the game, therefore you're going to get lots of fights, and often, and not all of them, but a bunch of them are pretty good EXP. Metal Slimes are good. Our Hydras are not great EXP, but they're easy to kill. So you can definitely get a few levels here. And as you can see here, Gregley's party is really coming into focus. Hey, what's this?
It appears to be a large robot named Warmech. What are you doing up here?
So War Mech is a very interesting decision. It's scary, and you just spent a bunch of time getting levels in Sky. However, it is also the highest EXP enemy in the game, and this is a fantastic way to get our party into a high enough level where we're going to be able to be that level 24 breakpoint that we very, very badly want on our knight. So, looks like Gregley's deciding to take it, doing some good damage. Swing comes out, avoids it. Going all in on the knight. I think all in on the knight is definitely a viable strategy because we have the Vorpal, but nukes and fades will work against War Mech very well. Vanilla only 1000 HP, and nukes and fades will average about 200 damage a pop. But a combination strategy will work well as well. So
I think we're nervous that we already saw Tornado come out. So the Warmech has the randomized skill. So we see Blaze coming out, terrifying. But it has the same skill set as the final four, or the final fiends. Jet, I'm lost for words. Why don't you go ahead with it?
Yeah, so that is the potential downside of the War Mech fight. War Mech hurts, and the scripts and spells of the Final Fiends is no laughing matter. So you can always run from War Mech if you're scared of something like that, but I think the decision, given the levels we're at and how many more fights we want to take, not a unreasonable decision. It's a little bit unfortunate. It was skill and spell happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fine. I just wanted to kind of show what War Mech was all about and kill him. I think in a normal run, I might have run away from that battle.
Yeah. I think it was a good demonstration that, War Mech is not a walking EXP pinata. War Mech can nuke you, War Mech can nuclear you, War Mech can kill you, and losing a skydive is often... we were talking about this in Discord the other day, but losing a skydive seems to be the most tilt-inducing thing that occurs that leads to people forfeiting seats.
Yeah, losing a skydive is the second worst thing behind losing a Topher dive.
Yeah. The reason is because not only is Sky a medium-length dungeon, but you tend to take a lot of fights, get a lot of levels, and open a lot of boxes, and when you wipe, you lose it all.
So now is a good time to talk about going back to win conditions. Win conditions aren't like when I say you want your fighter to be 24, you want him to have the mass mute, you want to have fast. That's all well and good. However, it's important to also have a backup plan. So backup plans that we see are Gregory Pup picking up Brack at level 5, because if Kraken 1 is punch happy and destroys the knight, you don't want to just go, oh, I've got no way to beat this. No, you have Brack, which is going to be able to take it out. So having a plan B is always a good idea.
Yeah, for the Fiend for the Fiend fights, I agree. Having a plan B is always a good idea. And then for the Fiend refights, you have to determine if you have the luxury of having a plan B, but other good plan Bs are a mage staff on a white mage, or a white shirt
on the red mage.
Yeah, a white shirt and a Vorpal on the red mage, or a red mage that can cast ruse. So those are more like plan Ds, but you want to, if you can, just set up a way for a solo mage to win is a really, really good idea. Just like while you're doing your Topher prep. It's not something usually that you search for. I don't know about you, Deadpulse, but I don't often search for it. But like I usually make a note, and then as I'm entering Topher, I kind of just put it in my back pocket. Like, okay, what life caster could survive, and how does that life caster win if they're max evade?
The best way I can describe the randomizer is you have all these lovely plans going in, but it's whatever tools that you have are what you can put together. So normally I don't seek out plan B, C, and D, but it's as soon as I see them, they are readily apparent. These are my plans now.
Absolutely. So Gregory, just picking up those kind of key items here. The Vorpal, solid improvement until he finds the Masa. Of course, the Vorpal does make it technically not Masa required. For could decide to skip maybe Sea Shrine if the Masa, like you get the Power Gauntlet in Waterfall or something like that. But we'll have to see. I think for the purpose of this boot camp, I will suggest just get the Masa if you have a fighter. The Masa is just so much better than everything else.
It's truly better.
So as Gregory kind of redoes this, if you have any questions in chat, feel free to let us know. My name's Jat. I'm joined here in the booth by Deadpulse, and if you're interested at all in what we're saying, come check us out on our Discord. We have the wonderful Duck Pond where we can answer all of your questions. You can check out the boot camp coming tomorrow, the Seed, and yeah.
In hindsight, I 100% agree with your decision to try to take on Warmech, by the way.
Sorry, thank you. I thought it was a stellar plan. It didn't work out, but in my brain, it was going to work.
A lot of things that are going to happen in the randomizer are high risk, high reward. The larger the risk, the larger the reward. You would have been at level 23 or 24 with all of your characters. You would not have needed to take another fight. So I think it was worth the possible 3-minute time loss.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think in this situation now we're going to have to take some fights in C, which is fine, but just, that's going to be the adjustment we make. Now, notice that I said immediately, and it's a little bit, I should give my logic for this. I said C, and the reason is you want to take fights in the later dungeons, because with Nuke and Fade, the average enemy pack is going to take the same amount of time to kill, regardless of whether it's a late game enemy or an early game enemy, which means you want to kill the late game enemies because they give you more EXP. So, therefore, the best place to do that right now is going to be Sea Shrine, although there's a number of fights in Waterfall that we're probably taking as well.
Jan, why did Gregory Puff reorder his party the way that he did?
I was actually just about to ask you that, Deadpulse. The reason is because the party order dictates the probability of a melee swing coming at you. So the first slot has a 50% chance of getting hit, the second slot has a 25% chance of getting hit, and the third and fourth slots both have 12.5% chances of getting hit. Now, if you have a dead party and it rolls that slot, it just re-rolls. So the percentages say not mathematically the same, but you can basically think of them as the same. So in general, for day-to-day or non-bosses, you're just going to want to keep your highest absorb character, your primary melee in most cases, in slot 1, especially if it doesn't have life. In Fiend fights, you want to keep your plan A alive, as well as your life casters. So what Gregory did there is move the White Mage, who's a life caster but not that important, up, and then his A plan, which was the Knight killing it dead, down to the bottom. Oh, I don't actually know that, Rocket. Wait, have I just not known this for over a year, Deadpulse? Does targeting percentages apply to single target spells?
I believe it is everything.
Oh, I did not know that. It's never mattered that much, but I mean, that definitely matters for things like Quad Axe. I've just all, where Lit 1 goes. Eh. Okay, so, Power Gauntlet. At this point, we now have almost perfect information. What does this Power Gauntlet mean for us?
So, the Power Gauntlet, what it does is when you use it in battle, it is going to be like casting a free temper on yourself, which is going to be 12 weapon attack power. That means, regardless of the math, more attack power is better attack power. So if you're hitting for low damage, you can use this to buff yourself. Now,
It's
in this,
actually- Sorry,
Oh,
it's
is it
Saber.
Yeah, it's
Saber.
but same idea. 10%. Yeah.
apologies. Saber is the self-cast version of Temper, but doesn't Saber have a little bit something else to go with?
16.
It's 16.
Yeah.
Regardless, if you have Temper at a low level, I don't foresee Gregory Puff using this unless he's, down to a solo character and doesn't have any Temper cast left.
Yes, I agree.
Goods Pirate in chat wondering, did I forget to equip the power gauntlet? No, I'm not equipping the power gauntlet because I want the pro ring for the death protection.
Yeah.
Which is why I got rid of the heal helm.
Yeah, this is something that comes up in comms a lot. You often, without a ribbon on the knight, you don't equip the power gauntlet, you keep the pro ring on because the death resistance is more important than the extra 8 absorb or whatever that you're losing by not equipping a heal helm. So as you can see, the other thing that power gauntlet meant is that we know the Oxale will be in Waterfall somewhere. It may be crown to key to Oxale, but the Waterfall dungeon will be required and will eventually lead to our Oxale. Now, how do we know that? Well, once again, let's go back to our incentive location math. We know there is 2 incentive locations left. There is Waterfall and there is Sea Shrine. And actually there's 3, and Canaria Locked. But we only have access to one of them, which means that with that in mind, we need the key and the Oxale, which means that Waterfall must lead to either the key or the Oxale eventually. And that means Waterfall is, a clear play. Blue D. So, as we're kind of in a decent level, do you want to talk about just very, very brief introduction to weapon breakpoints?
Yes, absolutely. So, how a weapon swing works is if you take a look at your status screen, you will see a hit percentage, and you take that hit percentage and you divide it by 32, and then you add 1 to that. That's how many hits you're going to get with a weapon. So, for example, if you have 32% hit, that means you are going to hit twice with your weapon. So when I say 5 hits, that means you're going to have 128% hit. Now, why hitting these is important is because every level that you gain, you get hit. So a fighter is going to get 3 base hit per level. So that means if you are level 23, you have, 126 hit? You want to try to get to level 24 because 1 more level means that you swing 1 more time, which is going to be 25% more damage.
Right, so damage is not linear in Final Fantasy Randomizer. Damage is very, very much not linear in Final Fantasy Randomizer. Weapon breakpoints are 25% or depending on which weapon breakpoint it can be. It can be 50% more damage compared to just the level before. So getting your weapon breakpoints right is super important. Now, we don't want you to memorize everything right now. That's why this seed is very simple. There's no blurses. There's no class blurses. There's no weapon blurses. The Masa is your sword. The Masa breakpoint on the knight or fighter is going to be level 24. So you desperately, well, not desperately, but you very, very, very much should be aiming for your knight to be level 24 or higher. And for this scaling, I would generally recommend almost exactly level 24 unless you're going with a 2-man or something like that.
The problem that I have here is that there are generally accepted there's generally accepted things like you should take your fighter up to 24, but that's still kind of an opinion because someone could come in here and be like, well, actually, you have fast and temper at a low level, so you could probably get away with your fighter being level 20. And you're absolutely right. I could. But for the purposes of this, I'm just saying it's good to get to that next breakpoint just to make sure you can do it.
Yes, 100% agree, Deadpulse. Weapon breakpoints also apply. Now, we kind of talked at the very beginning of the seed that this is very much a potential black belt flag set as well. And the black belt breakpoints work not exactly the same, but similarly. So you really want to pay attention to level 21, 32, and 42. Those are going to be your critical levels. And for this flag set, opinion incoming, you're probably going to be able to get away with level 32 in a number of cases, but 42 with the EXP is definitely doable as well. Decisions for 32 are going to be access to fast potentially, but also critically a ribbon or wall. So why are we in Earth when we still need to get key items? Well, the reason is because we know where the last key item is. The key is in Sea Shrine, and then the Masa is in Canary Lock, because those are the only locations that are left. We're going to pick up the Masa on the way to Temple of Fiends Revisited. So why are we in Earth? Well, Earth was right there, and we know we have to go do Sea anyways, so might as well clear Earth while we're nearby. And that is why this is called a proximity check.
I am all in on proximity checks. I love going to ordeals when I'm close. I love finishing Earth when I'm close. If you don't have to, like, if you can cut down your travel time in any way possible, it's always a good thing.
Oh, question in chat, wondering where these covers are coming from. Well, it looks like someone already put the YouTube content on there, but you may recognize a certain bass player on those particular tracks.
Yes, thanks to Twinstrumental for allowing us to use their killer music, as well as Greggly Puff, of course, for playing bass for them. So we're on to Lich. Not many strategies on Lich other than use any damaging ability on it and it dies. We should mention, you mentioned Brack as a backup for Tia and Kraken. Brack is only good against, only very good against Kraken 1 and Tiamat 1, but is definitely a good either primary strategy or backup strategy. It's 26.9% chance to hit. If you're going to go with your primary strategy, you either want a lot of cast, and you probably also want some way to get evasion up on your mages.
But it's always good for that Hail Mary. Lich also, as we're talking about Fiends, Lich is considered an undead, so any of the harm spells, or if you use a light axe, that's going to cast harm too. Those are all acceptable things. And fire is also a good spell because, hey, it's undead.
So Greggly Puff is deciding to go pick up the key here, and that's a good decision because, once again, the key is required to win.
Deciding.
Well, no, it's a good point because the key doesn't look like it's required, but we need it in the Temple of Fiends Revisited, so don't forget about the key. Yes, it unlocks Toph as well, which gives us our Massa, but that's not the reason we're deciding to pick up the key. It is required to win alongside the loot, so make sure you grab your key. And it just so happens that it locks the Massa.
I would be amazed if there was anyone in this community who has not either gotten to Topher without the loot or the key and bounced off of it.
So I have never bonked the key or the loot door, but I have bonked the orb so many times. The orb. When my brain is processing go mode, I just forget that I haven't actually killed the fiends. I'm just oh, I'm in go mode. And then I clear my last fiend dungeon and I just go and I'm oh right, I didn't clear. Sometimes it's 2 fiends. It's really embarrassing when you bonk the orb after not killing Lich and carry. But yeah. So nice warp strat there. He didn't decide to go all the way out. If you are lower level or need more spell charges or don't feel safe, warp all the ways out, go save. But at this point, we're feeling pretty good about things, so we're just gonna warp twice and walk straight left.
And if you'll notice, so the incentive is in the vanilla location, so it is on the opposite side, the absolute farthest away that you can get from Kraken. However, there are a lot of chests in there that Greggly Puff did not check. I did not look, but I believe you might have checked the first 3, and then you checked the 3 in the incentive box. Is that
That's correct? That's correct.
Those are the closest ones. The least amount of time to get all 6. As soon as you add in a 7th, it increases the time dramatically because you have to go and come back. So he's just checking the super greedy chests on the way, and I do not argue with anything he's doing.
And look at those levels. 24, we are feeling pretty good, and once again, we know the Masa is going to be in Canaria Locked. We have a Ribbon, we have the Masa, we have the Power Gauntlet, which is less important, but Ribbon, Masa, level 24, Fast, Temper, Life. Let's go. We're in... How do I say this without jinxing it horribly? We are in a position where I would feel good to enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited. That does not mean that the dive will succeed, but it means it's given it a high enough chance that it's probably going to be faster to try than it is to grind more.
Oh my gosh.
Is that a good way of putting it, Dead Pulse? I don't know how else to say, like, this is where I would feel comfortable, but it's not guaranteed. And it's not like 51% math either.
Yeah, I consider something, above a 75% chance to be in my favor. Like 50-50s, I don't like coin flips.
Yeah, I agree with that. So checking a few more greed checks, found an Excal. Now, once again, we mentioned this at the beginning, but the Excalibur is not quite as good, especially against the Chaos, in the randomizer as it was in vanilla, because it doesn't have the bugged crit rate. So the Excal actually has some of the lowest crit in the game for swords. So the crit rate is often more important than damage, because you can buff damage, but you can't buff crit rate, and high absorb fiends can be annoying. Excal absolutely can do it, but you want the Masa is going to be a much better pickup, especially for the very small time investment that's required to pick it up from Canary Locked. If we had to go clear, I don't know, full clear Volcano or something for it, maybe we just go with the Excal Vorpal combo.
Yeah, but it is also important to understand that when we talk about the breakpoint for a fighter being at 24 for 5 hits, we are specifically talking about the Mastermind, because each weapon gives a hit percentage, and the Mastermind gives 50, which the Excalibur breakpoint for a fighter is actually 29. So we're going to lose a hit, but at the same time, we have fast, and as I said before, we have fast and temper. We can probably get away with only 4 hits.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say, my Red Mage has been surviving reasonably well here.
Dark Moon is the potato of this party.
Yeah, Dark Moon not doing so well. I'm also very offended that Dead Pulse somehow was the primo Black Mage selection. Black Mage is often my spirit animal. This Red Mage has too much to do with Sir Link-a-Lot for me to be comfortable with it.
Yeah, if you would have named the White Mage after me, I think it would have lived more often.
Sorry, we're joking around a little bit, but that's because there's not a lot of decisions left here. The big thing is just fly around a little bit, get our Masa, and then we're going to be entering the Temple of Fiends Revisited. So what's the Temple of Fiends Revisited checklist? Let's assume we've considered our win condition. What should we be thinking about before we enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited?
We should be thinking, do we have full healing potions? Do we have a save item for immediately outside? Do we have our key and loot? And do we need to do anything else, such as get spells, get pro rings, get gold bracelets, anything else that we're going to need? Because this is it. We're going to the end.
So heal pots, key loot, spells, gold bracelets, pro rings. That's a really, really good checklist just to quickly go through before you enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited. Outside, of course, win condition thoughts. But here we go.
Don't even want to look at those things. So 5 of those bad men ambushing me, that's just a lot of heal pots I'm going to lose. And it's just not even worth sitting through, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So now, we have not touched on this at all, but what he did after that was did a soft reset in order to skip that encounter the next time. But we will cover encounter manipulation at a later date. For now, just know that if it fails, just reset out and maybe try again.
I suppose we could fill this time by talking about 2 terms that you're going to hear a lot. One more than the other. One of them is go mode. Go mode is when you physically have the loot, the key, and the rod, the oxyale, the chime, and the cube. Basically every key item that you need to complete the game. You are considered in go mode. There's another lesser term that you're going to hear called no mode. That's when you know where all of the things are, you just don't have them yet. So for example, before we got the key, we knew that Oxia, or that Sea Shrine, was the only place that the key could be. We were in no mode until we got it.
Correct. Yeah, that's really good term clarification. In the future, we'll try and clarify some more terms like hard and soft reset and things like that. Okay, so on to Fiends. Now, Fiend strategy is really important. Now, something I want to highlight that Gregley's been doing kind of by default here is just running from everything. Everything's runnable. You generally should not try to get levels in Topher too much. the Temple of Fiends Revisited, so running from everything going to be your de facto strategy. Doesn't mean it's going to always be the right strategy, but it should be your default unless you have a reason to do otherwise. Let's talk Fiend strategy though. Lich. The only strategy you need against Lich is to heal to full, and then if you have extra Fade, Nuke, Harm 4 charges, just use them.
Yeah, the strategy is that Lich is going to be just as scary spell and script-wise as any of the other fiends, but with a lot less HP. So if you can kill Lich before she goes, or only gets one turn, you're going to be so much better off than you were if you let her live for 3 or 4 turns.
Carry strategy, very similar, except you have to respect her punching ability a little bit more. With good armor on the knight, and at this scaling, not so much, but if your knight is very poorly armored or you're running a thief up front, you may want to respect the punching by moving your knight down. But for the most part, in terms of strategies, it's going to be lots of swing, nuke, 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 or swing, nuke, fade, nuke, or things like that.
Now we get to the fun ones.
What's Kraken strategy, Dead Pulse?
Don't get hit. I mean, no, it's honestly, it is, you need to, well, kill it before it kills you. You don't want your damage dealer to be in the front row, because that Kraken can swing with all of its arms. And if it, 10 hits you for 800 damage.
Oh, get out of here.
Okay, we're going to do Kraken things soon. So, yes, moving your primary damage dealer down and then keeping one life caster alive is also going to be absolutely critical. Yeah. Welcome to Final Fantasy Randomizer, where first turn nuke is a thing. So, this is a situation where you have to make a decision. Can I beat the remaining fiends? And the answer here is
probably without defense.
Maybe without defense. Okay,
Yeah.
If you had defense, it's yes, not for sure, but it's definitely worth a try. If the knight had life, it's 100% worth a try. We have the Masa, we have the Power Gauntlet, but the problem is we can't get up to enough evasion. We do have Invis 2, right? But we have like 2 charges left of it. So I think it's probably worth a try, but it's going to be like power bonk, swing, swing, swing on Tia, and then try and get up like a few stacks of evasion on Chaos. That would be my guess, but so yeah, this is sketchy. Now, let's talk about adjustments. So we saw turn 1 nuke on Kraken. What? Okay, we're gonna watch this first because we're getting Gregly words, and Gregly words is probably gonna mean bad things. Oh boy. So Tia's punching very hard, and 2 shots her knight. So, okay, so let's talk adjustments. What are the adjustments that we can make in Topher? This is an excellent Duckling Bootcamp seed, because remember, everything at the beginning was fantastic. We had Nuke, Fade, Warp, Life, everything, and then, of course, Topher does this. What are some of the adjustments that what should we be thinking about, and what adjustments should we be making, if any, Dead Pulse?
So the first thing is that the 2 first boss fights, Lich and Carry, do exactly the same. Do everything the same up until Kraken. Now, what Gregly Puff did is the smart play, casting Invis 2 to try to take out, to not be taken out by the physical attacks. However, Kraken 2 having Nuke first turn, that doesn't guarantee that Nuke's going to come out. It could be a swing. However, I would go all out damage. I would be fasting the knight, I would be nuking, I would be fading, and I would be swinging. I might even just nuke, fade, nuke, swing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the adjustment I would make. So when Kraken is physical, going evasion strats is good, although with the scaling I would still often just go full speed and power. But when Kraken has turn 1 nuke and your HP totals aren't super high, almost always the solution to nuke on Kraken is just speed and power, unless, stats are insane. Yeah, Aelmarkin's saying correctly, that awkward moment when you hope Kraken punches your white mage instead of casting spells. So that's going to be the plan on Kraken, kill it before it kills us. Tiamat, we also got some good information though, which is that it's very high melee damage. So that means Invis 2 may actually be a good alternative on Tiamat. What do you think about that, Dead Pulse?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was just switching my strategies around.
Now,
because normally I do defensive on Kraken.
Now, when do we decide to go and grind instead?
I do no more than 3 attempts. So honestly, the first thing that you're looking at is, did I have bad luck, or is it a problem with my party? Now, I will say that turn 1 nuke, killing 3 of your characters, that 2 of them were above 350, like, that's bad luck. You're not going to get that every time. So I would give this at least another shot, if not 2 more.
Yep. But when do we go back and grind? Well, one of the big things is back-to-back non-elemental AoEs. If you get nuclear against a high absorb, high HP fiend, that's when the answer might be grinding, like, very soon. Maybe you give it one more go, but if it's like chaos that opens with nuclear or something crazy like that, that's when grinding is definitely a consideration, because you're not going to really be able to, like, burn chaos down consistently enough, because your mages are going to die so quickly that you can't just get off enough nukes and fades to speed and power it. So that's the only time I would really consider, like, leaving right away, but most of the time just dive again. If you know that you're under prepared, like you came in with a fighter at level 18 and your mages are level 16, maybe go grind a little bit. But if you came in well prepared with that 75-80% shot, you know, make a small adjustment and try again. And in this case, it's going to be some speed and power against Kraken. So let's see how this goes.
The important thing to note is that you want to hope that you don't get bad RNG, but you don't want to be in a position where you're praying for good RNG.
Yes, that's very, very good point. Okay. Good turn order so far. There. Come on, low roll. Okay, we got the one critical roll on our red mage that makes this dive still stay alive. Now, as long as we get out... I shouldn't have said that. As long as we can get out of this fight with our primary life caster, we can get through this. So next turn, we got fast on the knight, swing, gets through Kraken. That's huge. So once again, we needed not amazing luck, we just needed slightly better luck, and that's what Gregory got, both in the red mage surviving nuke and then Kraken not immediately punching it on turn 2.
What I can also say is that Gregory Pub had a choice right there, and that was either to use the red mage to cast fast on the fighter or throw out a nuke. And he correctly saw that a nuke and a swing was not going to take out Kraken. He needed to have another turn. So the best case was that he was going to fast the knight was going to crit a couple of times and killed Kraken that turn. So he made the very heads-up play of trying to cut that down.
So being able to do HP math is very important. Look up your Fiend HP. They're all separated by 200 except for Chaos. So as long as you can remember that Lich 2 has 500, 700, 900, 1100. That's how you can remember it. And the Fiend ones are all 100 HP less than that. So Invis 2 coming out, once again, we need to make the adjustment here. And this is actually a nice adjustment. I like the Invis 2 coming out from the Knight as well. Usually you want to be doing damage, but in this case, this melee threat is massive. And if it punches the Red Mage without Invis charges up, we're likely dead. So going with the more defensive strategy is definitely paying off there. Big swing with the Masa, and we are through, and we still have a life caster up. Now, what's the plan on Chaos here? So most of the time against Chaos, you do not want to be going speed and power. Why? Chaos just has too much HP, and potentially way too much HP. So you're usually going to be wanting to go all in on your primary damage dealer. Now, how do you do that? 1, move your ribbon. Make sure your ribbon is on your primary damage dealer. Why? Because if you have nothing but a solo white mage up after a zap, you're dead. If you have a solo black fighter up, especially if that fighter got fasted first or something, you are 100% in it. 2, make sure you're using your Viz charges early, and maybe even invising on the Knight turn 1 to get up evasion extra fast, or just like power bonking. And then 3, prioritize things that the Knight can't do. So in this case, the Knight has the power gauntlet, so it can get up its temper, or temper-like charges, but it can't fast itself. So prioritizing fast on the Black Mage is a very good idea. Anything else you want to add, Deadpulse?
No, that was it. I want to see what this Chaos has.
So going middle of the ground. Oh no, pretty evasive. So we're going with Invis 2 from the Knight, the White Mage, and the Red Mage, and then I believe it's probably fast on the Black Mage. I didn't quite see the menu though. Uh-oh. Oh. Yeah, fast with the there. So exactly that strategy off the turn. And you can see those evasion stacks with turn order. That Black Mage just survived a punch because Chaos just missed. The way evasion works is you basically hit max evade at 6 charges of evasion, and Invis 2 gives 1, and Ruse, or the defense sword which casts Ruse, gives 2. So you can just do quick maths. Getting up to 2 or 3 though is a big improvement in terms of your survivability on punches. It doesn't mean you take no damage, but it means that most characters with good armor will survive at least 1 punch. Huge swing from the Knight there. Gonna prioritize a little bit of healing on it just to make sure that it can survive another nuke or nuclear. So the Cure 4 on specifically the Knight there, a really good play. 7 hits, down goes Chaos. Now I do want to highlight that decision. Grigglypuff did not Cure 4 the Black Mage with 4 HP. Why? Because if the Black Mage lives and the Knight dies, it does not matter. You prioritize healing your primary melee damage dealer. Your second priority is the person who can heal your primary melee damage dealer. And then the third priority is the buffer if your Knight can't buff itself. So, GG's to Grigglypuff. Now, we know it's late. It's, we started at 10 p.m. Eastern, so for all our East Coast friends who stayed up for us, I really appreciate it. We're going to start wrapping things up here pretty quick, but I did want to kind of pass it over to Gregory to kind of give any thoughts on the seed as you kind of listen to us chat about it. Oh, he may be...
Whoa, sorry. Yeah, maybe I should unmute my mic. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the magic was incredible. I think the early game went really well. I think it was pretty funny that we got the ship and canal and then still had to dig the TNT out of Volcano to get the floater. So it's like, look. All my, but that is just something that can happen there. Having all your transportation there in the inner sea with the canoe as well. Remember, I know that there's a lot of newer players that have been running the pod flags and the bracket flags and stuff. Just know the big difference here for your routing is that Northern Docks is off. So in normal areas where maybe you wouldn't prioritize an ice or a volcano dive because you got to do the river system, prioritizing those is a little bit better because you're not going to be able to go to places like Waterfall or Onrak or Mirage. So there was really only like a 33% chance of where the floater was going to be. It was either going to be in Volcano, it was going to be the Ruby turn-in / Sarda, or it was going to be down in Ordeals. Just something to think about, especially if you've been running those flags. I'm not the greatest player. I appreciate that, though. Other than that, really understand. I think the guys explained it really well. When you get adversity, especially in a Topher dive, it's easy to kind of tilt out when you get high rolled nuked like that. All of them going well over 300 to kill the White Mage and the Red Mage, and then the second time I got a max roll nuke on my White, so that felt really good. But luckily my Red Mage survived. So when something like that happens, know that he didn't attack then. Maybe I shouldn't go into this strats. Maybe I should just speed and power. So that's why you switch it up with the nukes and just go full on attack, and then obviously get into Tiamat with one person. Even if you aren't planning, even if you don't think you can kill Chaos, getting the information is key. So I wasn't sure I was going to make it through Tiamat. Being able to take on Tiamat and see that Tiamat was going to be melee heavy and also attack a lot gave me the information that I needed to know that when I go back in, I can be like, all right, I need to invis up for this battle. So those are just some thoughts. Other than that, I really appreciate everybody for watching. I will put out the Duckling seed first thing in the morning when I wake up. I'm not going to put it out now because I don't want to be pinging East Coasters at midnight. I appreciate you guys staying up, but last thing you need is another Duckling ping. So I'll hit you guys up. I'll hit you guys up in the morning. And other than that, I'll let these guys take us away.
Awesome. Dead Pulse, anything you want to add? I've been talking all your ears off. I don't have much else.
Two things. One, in regard to just expand a little bit on what Grigglypuff said, there are 3 kind of there are three things that are going to win you matches when you start getting into the competitive. That is going to be the speed of your execution, the amount of information that you have, and just plain luck. So when Greg Leapup was talking about, yeah, I probably wasn't going to be able to kill Tiamat, but I wanted the information, that's information that he is going to have that other people do not. And it's how you capitalize on that information that you get, and how fast you can go. It's great for anybody who is a new player, or you haven't played the randomizer at all, or you haven't played in years. Going on to the website, checking out, once we get up the Duckling seed, checking this out and rolling new seeds for them. And trying to get your time, in the relative, until you feel comfortable, playing this flag set. Because this is a great flag set that was made to kind of bridge you into playing the randomizer and just get you familiar with how do I complete the game. And that's what kind of makes this flag set unique from any of the others you might have seen, especially with the spring tournament.
Awesome. So thanks again to Dead Pulse for doing, I hesitate to call it comms, but like the co-explanation and going through everything, Greg Lee for running, Dark Moon for restreaming for us tonight. I did want to just kind of reiterate the format of what's going on. So 8 weeks of boot camp. Every Monday you're going to be checking out. I think most weeks are going to be on RPG Limit Break, but we may have a few where we could not get the schedule, so we'll let you know. Join our Discord so you can hear all about this. Tomorrow morning, when Greg Lee Pup wakes up, the Duckling Weekly will be posted. That is an asynchronous seed that you can run. It's going to be these same flags, different seeds, so maybe no level 1 nuke for you guys, but we'll have to find out. And you can complete it in multiple sessions. It does not need to be streamed, though if you stream it, that's great. And there's not a ton of rules. Obviously, Final Fantasy Randomizer, our community is all about, challenge by choice and making sure people, maintain. So, don't cheat, submit your actual time. It's going to be the way to learn the most. But if you need to take a break, take a break in the middle of the scene. That's totally fine. You can use the auto tracker if you choose, so there's no restrictions on that. And when you're done, you're just going to be typing in submit on the Duckling Weekly, and Greg Lee will have some instructions in there about how you can submit your first time. So once again, I do recommend that you run another seed of the same flag set first, so that way you can get a little bit more familiar with the flags, just to make sure you don't forget some small gotchas. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I hope you all take part in the Duckling Weekly coming out tomorrow, as well as the remainder of the Duckling Bootcamp, as well as the Duck Derby starting in 8 weeks. And with that, that's pretty much all I have. So I hope to see you all out there. This has been your Duckling Derby team, and I hope you all have a fantastic evening.
Want to thank everyone for coming out and watching this Duckling presentation right here of the Final Fantasy Randomizer Duckling Bootcamp. If you like what you saw, please come over and make sure to watch or check out the website finalfantasyrandomizer.com. You can find the randomizer there, along with links to the Discord and the development Discord. The Duckling Bootcamp will, of course, continue on for another 7 weeks, plus we have extra credit courses that will be airing on Thursday, and those links or those seeds and flags will be in our async runs that will be posted by our async team Thursday as well. This first week will feature the benefits of being a ninja with our own Will Bloodworth running that seed with me on comms. That will be on a pirate broadcast, more than likely on my personal stream, Dark Moon Firelight at Twitch. We'll get the link there in the Discord, so please come out and check that out as well. And with that, we are going to send you guys on home. 8 weeks of Ducklings, plus then the Duckling Derby to follow. We hope you guys stick around through all of that. And if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact and still want to run this, we will make sure that links for the flag sets are included on an instanced version of the website, so you can continue running this and practicing this even after the boot camp and the Duck Derby are over. From all of us in the booth and the rest of the Final Fantasy Randomizer community, want to thank you all for coming out and watching, and we hope you stick around for the rest of the Derby.